over it.
Yay, 2 check marks. Facebook Live and YouTube Live. We are on the air, so to speak.
It is
Hi, buddy.
on. Hello.
And Nick is on the moon. Kind
Well,
of.
I'm beside the moon because I took a picture
Somewhere
of it
So
yesterday.
Nick is picture in picture in picture. The way I'm looking at him right now.
PIPIP.
It's very confusing
Somewhere.
to me.
Somewhere between Earth and Moon.
It really was bright, actually. I normally reckon on, about 125th F4 or F5 to photograph the moon, but it was so bright last night. I was up around a 500th
Oh, wow.
at, I don't know, F8 and only 400 ISO, and, it was just incredibly bright. So everything anyone was saying about what do they call it, a winter moon or something, there's a special name for it. This
Sounds
moon
lovely.
really
We couldn't
was.
see it because it's been foggy and overcast
Oh, no.
here. I know.
It's so bright it could pierce the fog, I'm sure.
It's pretty dense fog here.
Yeah,
right
it was
now.
gorgeous here.
Yeah.
It came over the mountains and it was just it was bright yellow and
Now,
huge.
2 nights ago, when it wasn't quite full, I could see it coming up like in the late afternoon, and even then it was really, really impressive.
Yeah, it was.
Well, the moon makes quite a good heat source for a Sidewinder missile, actually. You can acquire the moon
Really?
if you fancied.
but it won't hit it, I bet.
You could try.
You need a
it runs out of
Explain that one in the debrief.
Yeah. What were you aiming at here? Well, I wanted to see if I could hit the moon.
Yeah,
I had a good target.
absolutely.
Well, hello, everybody. Liz, our director, producer, is making the point that all of you on the Facebook Live, not a problem if you want to stay over there and you like the Facebook thing, but it tends to be where we have more folks on the YouTube, in the YouTube chat. So, we see comments from both Facebook Live and YouTube, and we try to respond to everybody. And sometimes we'll just respond to both, and then you'll go, well, that's kind of a weird text.
Non sequitur.
Yeah, the APG show is sending. By the way, we're all APG show because we're all basically using my Gmail ID on the show right now. So Liz will put like in brackets that it's her talking when she just said hello to Andy. Anyway, so you don't have to switch over, but we just recommend that you do because I think you get more of a feeling of community when you're all together in the same room, virtual room, that is. So, there you go.
And there's Larry pitching up on Facebook. Can he just
Look at
missed
that.
everything you said?
A geezer. Get on over to YouTube, Larry. Come on.
Yeah. That's right.
Anyway, no, you don't have to again, but if you feel like you're missing some stuff, yeah, head over to the YouTube. Just go to airlinepilotguy.com/YouTube, and that should direct you to. You just click on the video that you see playing on the website page, and then it should take you to the actual YouTube page. I think a little bit more functionality there instead of doing it all on the website page. Whatever.
I see John's waiting for the CAN to ORD to fly to ANC. So, what's that? Chicago to
Anchorage.
Anchorage, yeah.
Oh,
He has a
good
toilet
Anchorage.
that'll do that for him. That's very impressive.
What can is he talking about there, Rick?
I don't know. In the can, that's an American saying, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it could.
Well, yeah,
It can be interpreted in many ways, but I'm sure he's talking about a ULD.
that's or a UDL. I don't know if you noticed, but
I'm not really sure it's a personal preference on that one, but it's okay.
That's not. Well, I
Or-
did fix that on the in post on the line. Like a you idiot. Okay. We do apologize for
the van.
Yeah, yeah.
The van
couple
that looks
of,
like a can.
Oh, okay. We do apologize for the double postponement of the show. Had some technical issues on Thursday, and then Steph couldn't join us at all, and we knew that. But the thought because of Rick's internet issues and my power to the mixer issue, which I think I could have worked around, but we decided just to go ahead and, the podcasting gods were saying, no, don't do it today. Do it another day. So we thought yesterday would be the good day to do it. However, I got back from my trip and I wasn't feeling well at all, and I just couldn't do it yesterday. So feeling much better today. So I do apologize if I have to cough every now and then. Yes, Aaron, I will have that in the Getting to Know Us segment. We'll all get to listen to Micah's contribution to the Tech Guy podcast. Yeah. Oh, yes, I see that. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see. Everybody recording?
Yep.
Okay.
I think
That's
so.
right.
And that's good.
Maybe.
We don't have to do any claps or anything. What are you laughing about, Rick?
Because Jeff, Steffi, I think so.
I think so.
Oh,
I've been
maybe.
recording for weeks now. Just you're gonna have to go back. No, not good. Not true.
So if you do need some of my recordings, you're going to have to specify about time frame-ish.
I'm just
like
gonna send
plus or
you some
minus a week.
gigantic file, and
Exactly.
you're gonna have
Give me
to
a
just sift through it. There's gonna be a lot of dead air there, and we'll
Sorry.
figure it out.
And if there's anything really interesting, Jeff, you need to send it to me.
Interesting.
Okay.
I'd never say anything that's interesting.
You know what's funny about that behind the scenes? We're recording our own signals, our own vocals individually, just in case something weird happens with the main stream. And on occasion, I've had to use everybody's individual files. And so when we're doing the show right now, if Nick or Rick or Steph want to mute themselves, like say they have to cough or something, they'll mute it using the StreamYard software muting. Well, that does not mute their microphone on their recording. And so you can kind of see where I'm going here.
So if I
I'm listening-
sneeze very
Yeah,
loudly,
my
it's
God,
usually a surprise.
Steph, she knows how to sneeze. Oh my gosh. I've like twice now, I think I've had almost a heart attack. Like, you're listening to everything and you're trying to fit it all. And all of a sudden, wow. Yeah. Anyway.
Sorry, I'm a loud sneezer. What can I say?
Yeah.
I don't have one of those
So
like
I'm
dainty,
always,
like achoo.
no, it's not a dainty little,
Nope.
yeah. So anyway, it's always
It's all right. Half
interesting.
the time it surprises me too. So it's a miracle I get things muted in time.
Anywho, so we're here. We're finally getting 462 recorded. I'm not sure what we're going to do for next week. Might be a quick turnaround for the next show. We'll see. That would work out best for me, but we'll see how it works out for everyone else on the panel here. But that's not something we need to talk about right now. So let me play the sound to make sure I have that set up at the right level.
Little soft.
From our side of the cockpit door.
A little bit too low.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show.
Still sounds low to me. Is it still low for you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Low.
Yep.
All right.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show. The view from our side of the cockpit door.
That's better. Still low.
Little better.
A little.
Okay.
Yeah, but still low.
Yeah, it's fine in
all the way
England.
up- all the way up here, so to speak.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show.
Usually that one I have to bring really far down. I don't know why it's doing that today.
You're listening to
Okay. Let me play another. That's kind of low as well, isn't it?
Yeah, we're all on the subdued side today.
That one's always loud.
There's only one volume for
Roger.
Kakalaki. It's just
Loud.
extreme obnoxiousness.
Yes. That's part of its charm.
That's exactly.
Okay. Well, we'll go with that. Okay. Let me go over here to... Oh, I should probably open up Evernote, since that's what we use for recording the show.
And watch it have to update right now.
It will.
I hope not.
Just
Not usually, because I have it on almost all the time, so it usually doesn't need to.
I
Liz
got
and
up
I
this
are
morning
working
early
on
to
it
make sure that
24/7.
everything was updated.
I did too. I was up early. I prepared. I was gonna go for a run, and then I went, I'm not really feeling a run just yet. I'll do that later on today. So breakfast and tech stuff and.
Nice.
All right. Looks like it is ret to go. And okay. Here we go. Ready, Liz? Okay.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG, it's the Airline Pilot Guy. Airline Pilot Guy episode 462. Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door, with your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from Studio 2C at the Pfister Hotel in Milwaukee. Today's show is recorded on the 25th of February, 2021. Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. It's your light and he's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy. In today's episode, part of United Airlines jet blows apart, raining debris on a town near the Denver airport. A United passenger has to pay the airline $50,000 for attacking a flight attendant, which forced the plane to divert. More news, your feedback, and today's plane tale, the Horsehead Gang. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 462 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger. He is an award-winning TV and radio reporter, currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins in New York City. Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, a pilot at a major legacy airline based in Atlanta, Georgia. And joining me today from her lakeside studio in South Doctor, skydiver, marathon runner, strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument-rated backstabbing jumper dumper, Dr. Steph.
Hey, Captain Jeff. It is so great to see you all this morning. Really looking forward to the show this week. Lots of interesting stuff to talk about, and should be a great one.
Looking forward to it as well. And also joining us from his home in the Valley of the Sun, a world traveler, airplane mechanic, Breitling cognoscenti, fitness hound, and international air freight captain. It's Miami Rick.
Hey, everybody. Looks like third time's a charm, but here we are. Looking forward to another great show. Lots of good stuff to talk about, whether you are on demand or live. Strap in. It'll be a good one.
Good point. All right, and last but certainly not least, from his studio in the pastoral English countryside, he's a professional photographer, former RAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airlines. It's Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff. Hi, everybody. Great to be back on the show. Looking forward to it. And what a shame we couldn't put it on yesterday. Then I wouldn't have had to watch England lose at the rugby.
Sorry. My fault. All right, let's get on to the news.
Stand by for news.
Okay, let's start with the first item in our news notebook, and that is a long-tail aviation Boeing 747-400 freighter, registration Victor Quebec Bravo Whiskey Tango, performing flight 5504 from Maastricht, Netherlands to New York, JFK, in the U.S., was in the initial climb out of Maastricht. Am I saying that right? Maastricht? A runway?
Yep,
21?
Maastricht is.
Yep,
Thank you.
that sounds good.
when the number one engine, a Pratt & Whitney 4056, outboard left hand, suffered severe damage and began to distribute engine parts, turbine blades, over the village of Meersen in the Netherlands, about 1 to 2 nautical miles past the runway end. An elderly lady on the ground was hit by the debris and received minor injuries. The crew declared pan, then mayday, and reported they had lost the number one engine. The aircraft stopped the climb at flight level 100, approximately 10,000 feet, entered a hold to dump fuel, and diverted to Liège in Belgium for a safe landing on runway 22 left, about 1 hour after departure. Did I say that wrong, Liz? Liège. Thank you.
Liège.
Okay. The aircraft stopped the climb at flight level 100, approximately 10,000 feet, entered a hold to dump fuel, and diverted to Liège, Belgium, for a safe landing on runway 22 left, about 1 hour after departure. A number of cars on the ground received damage as a result of the debris falling. The police in Meersen requested local residents to leave any debris in place and inform police. The airport reported one of the engines lost pieces of its turbine after takeoff. The aircraft subsequently diverted to Liège on 3 engines. Metal pieces fell down in the vicinity of Meersen. There are several reports of damages. A resident reported he heard a loud bang, spotted the aircraft with streaks of flames from one of the right-hand engines. I thought they said it was a number one. And then metal rained from the sky.
Yeah, that's eyewitnesses for you, Jeff.
I was just
There you
going to
go.
say.
That's a great example.
Well, and in the moment, it's like, right, left, I don't know. Well, whatever.
And don't forget, they're looking up at the belly of the aircraft, so they're going, the right must be over there.
Yeah. Who knows? A ground observer video shows one of the engines was pulling black smoke behind. Ooh, pulling black smoke.
Yeah, that's a neat trick.
How do you do that?
I don't know. Anyway, the Dutch Safety Board opened an exploratory investigation into the occurrence. And there's some photos here. I should probably... Is this your Audi? Is that bright red color, Nick? Here, let me see. We can share this.
It certainly looks like it, doesn't it? I wouldn't be very impressed with that aerial sticking out of my Audi. Yes,
Yeah.
I've got a new radio aerial.
Yeah, that's I'm surprised at how it just went right into, and it really kind of didn't even make much of a dent. It just kind of went right down.
Yeah,
Really exceptionally sharp on that
Yeah.
end there.
I think I'd leave that there. That's kind of a
I know,
cool
it looks cool.
Drive around
feature.
like,
Definitely.
what's
What
going
kind
on
of
in your
antenna
car?
is that?
Let me tell you.
Okay, here's some more of the fan blades. Yeah, so obviously had a fan blade failure, multiple fan blade failure, and the crew looks like they handled the emergency with aplomb and got the thing safely on the ground. Nobody hurt, except for the lady that had some minor injuries.
Yeah, quite lucky considering the number of blades that came down, and obviously they were travelling since they managed to spike that car very neatly. I'm so glad they didn't hit anybody.
Yeah, it could have definitely been a lot worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Could have been a lot worse. And as far as dealing with the issue itself, the 747 is just as far as the air system redundancies is just flies great on 3 engines. In fact, a number of years ago, a 747 taken off out of L.A. Lost an engine on the climb out, and then they thought it'd be a good idea to fly all the way across the pond. And they almost made it. They had to divert short of their destination because of fuel issues. Obviously, if you're going to be flying on 3 engines, there's drag considerations and other things. And so they almost made it. They had to divert, but I believe the FAA, they weren't too amused with that.
They weren't impressed with their decision making.
Yeah,
that
they
one.
weren't. But that tells you. I mean, that's a testament to the airplane. You lose an engine on a 747, it's a non-issue. I mean, basically, you have 3 other hydraulic systems.
Well, except for the FAA part.
Well, exactly. You have you have 3 other hydraulic systems. You have 3 electrical systems plus. You can turn the APU on because you can use the APU for electrics. if I remember that correctly. But actually, I don't think you can use the APU on the 7.4 in flight. But anyway, I mean, just the thing flies fine. Just a little bit of rudder, and you're good to go. But yeah, this could have been. Thankfully, nobody on the ground got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of big airplanes losing engines these days, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the good old Pratt & Whitney 4000 model.
I know, not a good couple of days for
And
PW.
were these the same day or like consecutive days? I can't remember.
Like they were pretty close.
Pretty
like
close
maybe,
in time frame. Yeah.
Let's see. The first one was on the 20th, and the United was it's on the same day.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh, wow.
The same day.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's move right on into that. Great segue to
That's a
the
good segue,
second one, which is really kind of the big one that everybody's talking about here. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people are talking about here in this part of the world. A United 777 leaving Denver for Honolulu on climb out shortly after takeoff had an issue with their right engine, the number 2. Engine inlet separates from the engine, and there was an engine fire. A United Boeing 777-200, registration 772UA. That's a cool registration number, huh? I think it was like the first one that they took
That's why it has
delivery of.
that registration.
Yeah. Performing flight 328 from Denver, Colorado to Honolulu with 229 passengers and 10 crew, was in the initial climb out of Denver's runway 25 when the right-hand engine's a Pratt & Whitney 4077 inlet separated, associated with the failure of the engine. The crew declared Mayday, reporting an engine failure. Did they report a Mayday or a heavy Mayday?
It was a heavy Mayday, if I remember correctly. We have to get it right.
Yeah, he ain't heavy. He's my
well,
Mayday.
I mean, we're like kind of journalists, right? So we should report
Yeah.
it as per the standard.
Yeah, okay. Reported a Mayday properly. It's just that the news, quote unquote, journalists, below 50%, did not report it quite that accurately. Big surprise there. The aircraft stopped the climb at about 13,000 feet. The crew requested to return to Denver after running the checklists. ATC offered any runway, they would make it happen. The aircraft returned to Denver for a safe landing on runway 26 about 23 minutes after departure. Okay, I think I ended up, it's been such a while since I prepared for all this. I'm not sure. I think I have some audio. Yeah, some live ATC audio from this situation. You want to listen to it?
You bet.
Let's do it.
All right, here we go.
328 heavy to return, no to Muggy, wind calm, runway 25, good for takeoff. Clear for takeoff 25, United 323 heavy, 328 heavy.
Whatever.
United 328 heavy, ground type departure, have a good day. Good departure, United 328 heavy, mahalo. Number departure, United 328 heavy is with you out of 6 for flight level 230.
United 328 heavy, Devon departure, radar contact, climb and maintain Papa 230. Moderate turbulence from 14 to Papa 220.
Okay, understand. Thanks to the Pi Rep, cleared to climb flight level 230, United 328 heavy.
United 328 heavy, clear direct Zimmer.
All right, direct to Zimmer, United 328 heavy.
Zimmer?
Denver departure, did 328 heavy, we experienced an engine failure, need a turn. Mayday, Mayday, United 28, United 328 heavy, Mayday, Mayday aircraft.
328 heavy, say again please, read all that again.
Yeah, United Denver departure, United 328 heavy, Mayday aircraft, just experienced engine failure, need a turn immediately.
328 heavy, left or right turn?
Left turn.
328 heavy, turn left heading 080.
Left heading 080, United 328 heavy.
Pilots discretion, maintain 9,000.
Okay, descend and maintain 9,000, United 328 heavy.
United 328 heavy, you want us straight into runway 7?
At immediate, we need to, let's go, we need to run some checklists.
Okay, United 328 heavy, roger, just let me know what you need to do. If you want to hold for left turns, let me know.
Very good, United 328 heavy.
Fuel and souls on board.
28 heavy, go ahead.
United 328, one able, fuel and souls on board and intentions.
We'd like to return to Denver as soon as possible here, and we'll get you the souls in a minute.
Copy that, Roger. Clear to Denver, be radar vectors. Do you want a left turn into the airport right now, or do you want delay vectors for anything else you might need?
We'll need delay vectors. We need to still run a few checklists and get some landing data.
Okay, I'm just going to keep you in that heading there, left turns all the way around the aerodrome, and whatever runway you line up for and you want, just let me know and we'll make that happen.
28 Heavy, thank you.
United 328 Heavy, one able, fighting 050.
050, United 328 Heavy. Now, what runway you're planning for 328 Heavy?
Yeah, 328 Heavy, you can have any runway you like, so just let me know. Keeping you wide there if you want to go into the west runways, or I can take you up to the north and take you to the south runways. It's really your call. Closest runway will probably be runway 26. Then 328 Heavy, Roger, it's going to maintain 8,000.
All right, clear to 8,000, United 328 Heavy.
United 328 Heavy, information, Quebec is current, to Denver, 2966.
Understand 2966 for United 328 Heavy.
328, we can take a tighter turn in here.
United 328 Heavy, about 8 miles from grass, turn left heading 290. Maintain at about 7,000, go establish on the localizer, clear ILS approach, on what you could.
I cleared your ILS 26, United 328 Heavy.
United 328 Heavy, Denver Tower, wind 3609, runway 26, clear to land, Denver altimeter 2966.
Clear down 26, United 328 Heavy.
United 328 Heavy, equipment is standing by your discrete frequency. When you land and roll out, to talk to the personnel on the ground is 120.15.
All right, 2015 for United 328.
United 328 Heavy, plan a full stop on the runway, and then the personnel will come in and check out your aircraft, and then we'll get you moving from there.
Okay, full stop on the runway for United 328 Heavy.
All right. That was a happy ending. They did a great job of getting everything under control and all checklists accomplished and got the thing on the ground. And as far as I know, I don't think they did an emergency evacuation once they were on the runway, and so there were no injuries. So job well done. Little confusion there when from one pilot's voice to the other pilot's voice, where originally it sounded maybe the captain was saying we need delay vectors, and then the other person came on and said we need to return immediately. And the controller goes, okay, you want vectors right now to runway 7? No, we're going to need some delay vectors. So, and I understand things are pretty crazy in that cockpit right now, I'm sure, or at that moment. And there are under a lot of stress and pressure. But
absolutely. But like I said a couple of days ago, it's, you see this, the way the news kind of, blew it out of proportion, it just once again confirms the fact that these people are out to, be the first, whether they're right or not. And that does a huge disservice to, the flying public, because, a lot of people that are not, into aviation as much as we all are here, basically believe whatever it is that they're told, and the media, they paint this picture where this was a dire situation. Well, I'm not taking away from the fact that you're one of your two engines is out, you're flying in mountainous terrain. There's issues to deal with to get the aircraft back on the ground safely, but it's not like the sky is falling. So well,
it's really just compounded by when, especially nowadays, there's pictures and video of everything. So when it's a very dramatic looking event, that just feeds into people's imaginations. And unless you have people who are subject matter experts who can speak to it quickly and provide rational information, it kind of gets blown out of proportion even more quickly than it would otherwise.
Well, what kind of irritates me is these local news affiliates get these people that are so-called aviation experts that don't really have any idea what they're talking about.
Want to know what it feels like to fly and land a 777 aircraft with just one engine? Just ask pilot Rick Ruiz. It happened to him while flying a large cargo aircraft.
The first thing every pilot says or thinks is, what's it doing?
One of the engines on the Boeing 767 he was flying went out. Ruiz tells the problem solvers the failure is noticed pretty quickly.
You're going to have dissimilar thrust, which means that you're going to have thrust on one side and not on the other. And that is going to cause what's called a yawing moment. And that's basically the nose of the aircraft going to the left or to the right.
It's at that point, Ruse says, he used the plane's rudders to stabilize the aircraft with the plane's tail to keep it flying in a smooth forward direction. The 777, whose engine exploded just outside Denver Saturday, returned to DIA safely. Ruse says flying and landing a plane with just one engine requires extreme teamwork and help from an auxiliary power unit, a smaller engine that's activated in the plane's tail.
You just turn on your auxiliary power unit, and it's going to pick up the slack on the electrical system. And at that point, like I said on my thread, you're back to having a perfectly operable aircraft minus the engine.
Ruse says losing an engine is very rare. Still, for some passengers, it can lead to some nervous moments. Pilots, though, remain calm and are able to safely land the plane.
And of course, the NTSB still investigating, saying that mental fatigue may have been a reason for part of what happened, but still no official determination. Meantime, Ruse says that pilots train for all kinds of emergency scenarios, often throughout their career. Reporting live from Broomfield, Vicente Adonis, Fox 31.
All right. So that was an example of these guys that have no, I'm just kidding. That's a great example of somebody who does know what they're talking about and who is actually an expert in this particular situation. Great job, Rick.
Thanks a lot, guys. And I reached back out to Vicente and actually thanked him for taking the interest and asking the right questions and trying to educate people as to what really goes on when this happens. Like I said, and I haven't flown the 777 myself. It's when you have an engine issue, as long as the systems are working properly, the rudder will go in automatically for you. We've talked about it at length in other episodes. It's a system called the TAC, thrust asymmetry compensation. It's basically all it does is constantly compares the rotational velocity of the low pressure compressor, the deltas, and anytime there's more than 10% difference, the rudder will go in and compensate for what it interprets as dissimilar thrust. And so all you do at that point is just go through the checklist and disconnect the cool thing about the 777 is that it has independent auto throttles for the left and right engine. So you disconnect the auto throttle for the affected engine, bring the thrust lever in the affected engine to idle, fuel control switch to cut off, and then from then, if it's a fire situation, which I wasn't there. I haven't seen the data, but the alarm that we hear on the ATC recording points, at least makes me think that the warning they got on the cockpit was a fire indication, and so the procedure at that point would bring you to pull the fire switch up, and that disconnects electrics, hydraulics, pneumatics from that engine, so you're essentially securing the engine and discharging one of two fire extinguishing bottles that are in the pylon. The issue here is that since the inlet of the engine was gone and most of the cowling of the engine is gone, the only way to contain that fire extinguishing agent is with the cowling around the engine. Otherwise, there's basically nothing to keep the chemical in there, put the fire out. Now, another interesting thing is how do these engines detect fire? Because they're hot. Obviously, fire is hot, but how do you make sure that the system works properly and interprets a fire as such? And so what you have is two fire detecting loops, and very simply put, you basically have two wires embedded in an isolating material, kind of like ceramic. And when that gets to a certain temperature, the resistance of that ceramic drops to a point where wherever the fire is happening, the circuit closes. And then that is obviously interpreted in the cockpit as a fire warning. And then you go on and run the checklist like we said. And then as far as coming into land, engine secure, you have your APU running, you're back with normal electrical power. And the 777 can even do a complete auto land on a single engine. So it's more of an issue with coordinating with ATC, you know, talking to the passengers in the back, and obviously the startle factor. I remember when this happened to me, it's certainly not something that you expect. And when it happens in real time, you go, holy, what's going on? But then I tell you, and every time I tell the story, it really does feel like you're back in the simulator. It feels exactly like you're back in the simulator. It really doesn't hit you until you're on the ground and at the hotel. At least that's how it happened to me. So,
yeah, it's one of those things. I think you expect it in the simulator, and when it happens in real life, you definitely hear that startle factor in those initial ATC transmissions. You know, like you said, Rick, it goes back to everything reverts back to your training there, as it should. But those first few moments, it's going, oh, okay, yep, we got to take care of this and communicate things and keep flying the airplane and do what we've been trained to do. But you can definitely hear that in most of these instances.
Been playing a video in the background while Rick was talking about this, and I'm going to turn the volume up on this. I thought it was kind of funny at the very end because you can hear a little girl. It sounds like a little girl's voice to me anyway in the background, saying something about she not wanting to fly in an airplane ever again. This is after the airplane's landed. Let's see if I got it in the right place. I don't want to go on a plane anymore.
And who can blame her? I don't want to either.
I don't blame her either. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We've kind of been not playing this down, but explaining, how well trained the crew were and how well they coped. But both these incidents, to me, for as an ex-professional pilot, are a bit worrying, since the engine is supposed to contain any blade failures. And we've had two cases here. And the 777, the blade not only destroyed the casing around the engine, but it actually penetrated the bottom of the fuselage. That's a bit of a worry, wouldn't you say, for Pratt & Whitney? Because, it's not supposed to do that.
Well, for GE CFM as well, the Southwest Airlines, a couple of different instances, the same thing. And I think that they may need to go, and it's a point well made, Nick, that when these things were originally designed, they weren't designed to contain the engine inlet cowling and the cowling around the whole engine, but actually contain the blades within the core of the engine. And I think, technically speaking, everybody would tell you that these all were contained technically. But like the instance of the Southwest where the lady lost her life, it wasn't a fan blade that hit the side of the airplane and caused the penetration. It was a piece of the cowling that hit the side of the airplane. So I think they may need to go back and look at their requirements for not only containing fan blades and turbine blades inside the core of the engine, but also not tear up the entire cowling. Because now what do you do? As Rick mentioned, the firing the fire retardant,
the fire bottle,
fire bottles. I mean, it has to have the cowling around it for it to be effective. If there's no cowling, it just gets sprayed into the atmosphere. Doesn't do any good at all. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I think you said that. If not.
I agree 100%. I don't know the actual definition of an uncontained engine failure, but I'd be interested to know what did penetrate the belly of this 777, because there's quite a big damn hole in it.
There's the picture that we see is actually pieces of cowling. It's a honeycomb. See if I can find maybe a close-up shot of that on one of these here.
But there is a picture that shows a puncture right behind the cascade for the reversers, for the thrust reversers. So I don't know if that's
okay.
I don't know if that's what hit the wing to body joint and the underbelly near the air condition impact.
Okay, so let me see if I can zoom in on this a little bit more. But the material that looks like penetrated this area was from something else I was reading. They said that appears to be the honeycomb material on the actual engine cowling. But I don't know, maybe that's just the honeycomb material of that fiberglass right there. So I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what hit it. It was whatever it was traveling at a high rate of speed and had some mass to it. So it may have been a blade.
No, absolutely. And then also you have the I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, so I just, we were talking about contained versus uncontained, but, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because I thought just kind of quite simply that uncontained engine failure is any engine failure where you have fragments of rotating parts from inside the engine that either escape or penetrate other parts of the aircraft and not exit just out the back of the engine.
Right.
Inlet.
Precisely.
But as I said, people are getting really technical about that definition and saying
I hear that, but I think
yeah.
the definition is fairly, it's a technical definition, but it's not that technical. So
well, it is when
it
comes
does seem to
the
be fairly precise. I think the general public will look at the definition and go, "Well, that's a load of rubbish." And you'd need to be an engine man to be able to decide whether the engine is properly designed. But from my point of view as an ex-operator, I would say that the engine needs to stay together better than either of these did. Certainly the cowling needs to have a chance of staying on because
Absolutely.
raining all this stuff down on people below and the auxiliary damage that can occur is not good. So I hope the engine manufacturers don't try and wheedle out of this. I hope they realize that there's probably a design fault. We've been working so hard over the years to get everything on the aircraft as light as possible to improve performance and yet increase the levels of thrust on the engines. Those two don't necessarily go hand in hand. You can perhaps do one, but whether you can do both, I think we're perhaps seeing the limit of the current engineering capability. Perhaps we're reaching that limit. I don't know.
And another thing to perhaps point out here is the fact that engines on airplanes are among the most changed parts. You take engines off and put engines back on all the time. You take engines off for you have overhaul issues. You have all sorts of things that call for the engines to be removed. So the engine when an airplane rolls off the factory line, those are not the engines that the airplane flies with its entire career.
That's a very good point, Rick, because they might say the aircraft was 22 years old, but actually
there was
the
some
components of
that
the
said
engine,
ancient 777 falls apart.
The components of that engine might only be 6 months old.
Exactly.
Precisely. Exactly right.
So I think that everybody agrees here that something needs to change as far as a definition of containment. And I think that my point was that the NTSB was kind of suggesting that that's what we need to look at seriously and for the engine manufacturers to start designing engines with that in mind, not just to contain the blades and stuff that's in the core of the engine, but also the big pieces that we're seeing now flying all over the place, killing people.
Yeah, and another thing to point out here is that the cowling and those pieces that keep the engine streamlined and aerodynamic, those are not engine parts; those are airplane parts. So that's something else to consider. So
right.
And another just exceptionally lucky event where no one on the ground was seriously injured because all of those pieces fell in basically a neighborhood.
Yeah, it is kind of a minor miracle that nobody. Although you should see the big inlet cowling in front of the person's house. And
it's a pretty dramatic picture. Yeah.
No, yeah.
Somebody was saying,
I'd want that back if I were him. Yeah, that's right. I want to put this up in my backyard.
It's a great decoration. I
can't
get it in. I can't fit it into my front door, but
someone just needs to help me roll it around the back into the backyard.
Yeah, turn that into a
swing from it or
point.
something.
It would make a great hot tub, Liz.
Ooh, yes, good call.
Actually, I saw that some kids had grabbed some cowling parts and lined them all up in a sports field, so that people could take pictures of them. Folk, if you're listening to this, please leave them where they are. Make a note of where they are. Number one, they may not be of a material that, particularly if they've been a bit burnt and a bit damaged, that is very healthy for you to handle. So just leave them alone. And to the investigators, it might be important to them to know where they fell so they can work out the order in which parts came adrift, rather than, tidying things up for them or posing them for a nice picture.
Yeah, that might be the peas we're looking for. So you just leave it.
Yeah.
Good point. All right, let's move on to the third item, another uncontained engine failure. And this one I think was actually an uncontained, technically. The big ol' AN-124 at, say that again for me, Rick, Novosibirsk?
Novosibirsk.
Yes, that. Back in, November of last year. A little bit of investigatory work has revealed that they identified the destruction of the number 2 engine's fan disc as the main cause of the accident. I think everybody kind of knew that, but there you go. That was the update regarding this incident where the AN-124, the uncontained failure, took out a whole bunch of... they were really lucky they got this thing back on the ground, really. They lost all their electrical. I forgot all the different systems. They lost several of the hydraulic systems. They were able to limp the thing around under, and I guess it was very heavy, almost at its maximum weight. And they came around and were able to land the thing, but there were no brakes for no brake pressure, no reverse thrust. They just kind of kept going right off the end of the runway. And but luckily, nobody was injured. So
yeah, this thing doesn't strike me like it would have a thrust asymmetry control. So
no, little bit earlier technologically.
A little
not
different.
As advanced.
So that was not a big surprise. Here's an interesting one. These Yahoo fighter pilots, you know how they are.
Dreadful lot.
The worst.
I know.
Yeah.
A bit too low. A French Rafale fighter cuts power lines. This is from Mentor Pilot. A Rafale fighter jet belonging to the French Air Force cut 3 power lines as it flew low over a village, sustaining substantial damage. And in the process, it caused an outage in a small town. The aircraft belongs to the 4th Air Squadron, 113th Air Base at Saint-Dizier-Robinson Air Base. Liz, you don't have to laugh that hard. You can't hear her, but she's
Saint-Dizier-Robinson.
Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't sound French at all.
Exactly.
Well, that's because I'm English.
You didn't even try.
Saint-Dizier Robinson? I don't know.
Okay. Saint-Dizier Robinson. Along with the identical jet that had taken off from Orange Air Base, 115th, in the south of the country.
Orange Air Base.
Orange
French
Air
and
Base.
Send your feedback to
Our apologies.
Just imagine that Clouseau was saying it.
Our apologies to all those people who are of French origin listening to the show right now.
That's half the Canadians have switched off, yeah.
Uh-oh. Would it be a guillotine or a guillotine? Come on, Liz. Their maneuvers found the 2 French Rafale jets in the Alpes de Haute-Provence region in the town of La Castellet. I should just let Steph do the rest of this one.
I'm probably not doing a great job either, but it's closer. Alpes de Haute-Provence.
Okay.
Le Castellet, in case you're asking.
I think I got that one.
Good.
The mayor of Le Castellet reports that he was driving his car when he first saw the first jet. It was flying over the town, low to the ground. It went so low that it made a hell of a noise. I then raised my head and saw a second aircraft. Excuse me. That second French Rafale was low enough to fly under the power lines, but not quite all the way under them, as it turns out. And after the Rafale jets left the French town, the mayor drove closer to the site. He discovered cut power lines laying on the ground. I immediately called the emergency services and the team at Enedis, and the electrical company. I don't know, ENEDIS. The event caused the closure of the access road to La Castellet. Approximately 300 people in the town had no electricity for 3 hours while crews mended the lines. Okay. We do have pictures, Liz. I was just waiting to finish the narrative before I showed them, because then I would have nothing to read. So here we go. Share. And we can look at the pretty Rafale jet the way it's supposed to look. There. Without any damage. and then we'll look at this one here.
Oopsie.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that very well, but a lot of damage. And to me, I don't know, Nick, I'm not an expert, but that looks to me like if it had maybe been plus or minus a foot or two in one direction or another, it could have resulted in a much different outcome, possibly.
Yeah, if you draw a line from that top impact on the fuselage down through the drop tank, you can see, and then imagine that being then level on the horizon, you can see that he was actually in a pretty hard right-hand turn, or, you know, a lot of bank on, either that or he was possibly in a left-hand turn, but he had a lot of bank on, one way or the other, depending on on which way round it was. But I'd love to know the normal height of these cables, because you get a pretty good indication of how high above the ground he was. But yeah,
now,
not good. But you know,
I
I'm
would
very
imagine
glad
that
the cable gave way.
That canard that we're seeing in the position that is like fully up right now was probably more flush with the in line with the flow of the air and such. But I would imagine
it's got a little dink on it as well, isn't it? As has the engine intake. So I'm fairly lucky to get it back. But having said that, you know, we've had fighter jets hit cable car, cables, and get away with it. You know, with all that energy, you can part big chunks of metal, but it's not good for that, and more importantly, not good for anyone underneath it or nearby.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that they didn't have Twitter or Facebook for, several hours, probably.
Yes. Well, I hope they took plenty of pictures. Well, we don't see any though, do we? So.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
Anyway. There we go.
I expect these blokes to be banged to rights. I mean, to be truthful, even if you are cleared to fly at a certain height, low-flying maps, at least in my generation, had all the power lines that you are likely to have problems with clearly marked with and red zigzags overlaying them, so that there was no doubt as to when you were getting them. And it's quite important to spot those and make sure that you've made an allowance if you're coming up to something like that.
And that was going to be my question to you, Nick, because I mean, obviously you're the only fighter pilot in the panel here. Is this low-level type flying is something that you can do just anywhere, or are there designated areas where you can do this kind of flying?
Well, I can speak for a couple of countries, but I don't know about France because I never did any low flying over there. So usually you're in a designated area. The Australians, for example, had areas where you could go down every day to 150 feet, but they surveyed those areas to ensure that their maps were accurately indicated any potential hazards if you were bobbing around at that height. Most low flying areas have definite limits as to where and how, mainly because of the noise problem and keeping the local populace on side, as it were, by avoiding areas of population. And they have reasonable chance of marking out everything there, but I would have thought the French probably down to 250 feet in their low flying areas. And there aren't that many cables which go up that high.
Mm-hmm.
Nigel's in the chat room, and he's done a lot of low flying. I don't know if he did any in France. Can remember.
Oh, he can't remember what he did last week. What are you talking about?
No, I know he is a bit long in the tooth, isn't he?
I say the long-term memory sticks around longer usually, right? So you'll probably be able to reminisce a bit.
Yeah.
Don makes kind of a smart aleck point in the chat room. We can start an APG crowdfund for Rosetta Stone for Jeff, which is a software.
We'll have to get so many different languages going for you, though.
But, Don, you don't understand. The reason why one of the reasons people enjoy watching the show is to watch me just butcher every single international, foreign kind of word. That's part of the show. It's part of the charm, okay? I'm actually doing it on a purpose. I can actually correctly pronounce everything. It's just I purposely do it wrong so that people get entertained.
You want to stay humble a little bit, right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Stay humble, San Diego. I know that's not right, but okay. We have an update. You remember that Cessna Citation 560 private jet that crashed into the Mutton Mountain Range in Warm Springs, Oregon, not too far from Mount Hood? Mm-hmm. Turns out that CFI John saw this. It's an update on the Citation crash. Sounds like the FAA will make a final ruling later. It says, keep up the great podcast, CFI John. So he gives us a link to this article. It says, Portland man who died in January plane crash was not certified to fly the aircraft. The Portland man who was flying a Cessna Citation 560 that crashed into the Mutton Mountain Range on Warm Springs land in early January was likely flying the plane alone for the first time. At first they thought that there was a passenger on board as well, and was not certified to fly that type of aircraft, according to a preliminary report by the National Transportation Safety Board. The pilot of the flight that left Troutdale en route to Boise, January 9th, was identified last month as Richard Bolke. Did I do that? Is that
Boise.
Right, Steph?
Mm-hmm.
Boise. Of Portland by the Warm Springs Police Department. Early reports indicated there was also a passenger on board, but authorities determined Bolke was alone when the plane went down. According to the new report, which does not identify Bolke by name, the pilot of the downed plane held a private pilot certificate that was rated for the Grumman G111 Albatross and Learjet, but FAA records did not indicate that he held a type rating for the Cessna Citation 560. The aircraft is registered to SX Transport LLC, a company with no listing in the Oregon Business Registry, but with an address on Marine Drive Houseboat Slip in Portland, where Bolke appeared to live. He had a Citation 560 training. He had taken Citation 560 training toward the end of 2020 at a training facility in Arizona. The report said, however, the owner of the facility stated that the pilot had not performed to a level sufficient to be issued a type rating or a single pilot exemption. Historical flight data and interviews with people who know Bolke led the NTSB to conclude the January 9 flight was likely the first time he had flown the airplane on his own. The report said that he boarded the Cessna 560, closed the cabin door at 12:44 p.m., took off by 1:07 p.m. after some back and forth with the ground controller. Early on, the pilot had some issues, the report showed. When a controller provided Bolke with a heading change, he didn't respond. Two controllers made multiple attempts to contact him, and he responded on the fifth attempt. As the flight continued, he continued to be slow to respond to directions from controllers. At one point, a controller told him to turn right, but the plane turned left. Around the time, maybe he was the guy that looked up the engine and said it was the right engine.
I think there's a lot of us that sometimes struggle. Well, we know our right. We know the difference between our right and our left, but sometimes when you say it out loud, it's for some reason it's the wrong one. I have the same problem with east and west.
Do you want my right or your right?
Like turn east. Nope, the other east.
Well, hold a rock in your right hand. So rock right. Although that gets a little cumbersome sometimes.
A glass of port in your left hand.
A glass of port there. Okay. Anyway, we all know what happened. It kept on climbing. I missed a frequency change, or I think the controller restricted him to 23,000 feet, but the airplane continued to climb and got all the way up to about 31,000 feet, and then it began to descend in a spiraling descent and hit the ground at an elevation of 3,600 feet in the Mutton Mountains. The report said investigators recovered the cockpit voice recorder and other wreckage, which will be examined. Anyway, the FAA did confirm during his last transmissions, it sounded like Bolke was slurring his words, possibly indicating some sort of medical issue, but nothing beyond that has been confirmed. That's what I think we kind of thought, that it was kind of the way he was talking on the radio was a little bit, maybe he had some kind of a medical issue. I don't know. Yeah. He's listed on business registration documents for Synexus Services, a senior living company he founded in 2010. Court records showed he was sued in October for allegedly failing to pay back an $825,000 loan that he obtained in 2019 for the company. This is, circumstantial evidence, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the latest on that. All right. Not really much to say there, is it?
No, I think the article kind of sums it all up.
Mm-hmm. All right. Hey, some good news for a change. Item F. Spirit Airlines announced that they start training pilots and flight attendants next month, and they expect to return to 2019 capacity by early summer. We are expecting to see low-cost carriers recover earlier than the other airlines, and Spirit seems to corroborate this expectation. On Thursday, Spirit stated that its training programs for pilots and flight attendants could start as early as a month from now, and they need to if they're going to get the capacity they need by summertime. Spirit believes that they stand to gain market share if they're ready to go before the competition. The CEO, Ted Christie, added, "Will be a big hirer." Again, is that really a word? Growth in the airline industry is going to be at the leisure end, and we're the primary server of that guest. The airline largely avoided furloughs in 2020. They offered incentives for leaves of absence to pilots and other staff, which many took up. Most of the company's staff is unionized, and they avoided involuntary furloughs entirely. Some non-union workers did face furloughs, although U.S. payroll support schemes meant that most still got pay. Spirit's training will involve pilots returning from furloughs and leaves of absence. But there is a catch. The airline has a limited training capacity, so Spirit will need to strike a balance between training new pilots and cabin crew and bringing in existing employees. Our training footprint can only handle so much, so it has to be phased, said the CEO. The airline also has hiring plans for other non-flying positions, and interestingly, they are not the first U.S. airline to make encouraging noises on staffing recently. Like Spirit, Delta also announced the return of 400 pilots to active status with appropriate training for the summer. And as we saw, Delta also avoided involuntary furloughs for its flight crews. However, they reduced pay and offered leaves of absence like Spirit and many others. The possibility for another airline payroll support package means that airlines in the U.S. can now contemplate such moves. And it really matters. Training for pilots and crews takes a long time. Yep. So anyway, so that's just anecdotally, I flew a couple of trips last week, and I'm telling you what, things are really starting to look pretty much like they were before the pandemic, especially at Atlanta International and several of the other airports. Almost every single flight that I'm flying is carrying the maximum amount of passengers that we can with the self-imposed block out of the center row seating. We have 5 abreast, so we have the 1, 2, 3, and then an aisle, and then 2. Or is it 2 and 1, 2, 3? I don't know. One of those. Yeah.
Know your aircraft.
Yeah, I know. I used to know that.
Who goes back there and looks down the
It doesn't matter. It's on one side or the other.
Yeah.
And the middle row on the side that has the 3 seats is still being blocked. And but honestly, it's hard. And when you look back from the cockpit, you see the passenger cabin with all the passengers in it. You're thinking this looks pretty much like the airplane's packed. So we're definitely showing signs of recovery at Acme.
Yeah, this goes along with stuff I've seen, just on different forums and things where even some of the regional airlines in this country are starting to kind of ramp back up training and recruitment for new pilots and whatnot. So I think we're definitely turning a corner there, because I saw that this week. At least 2 different regionals are very close to resuming new hire classes and things like that.
Yep.
I'm just curious, why on earth would they go to the expense of training up pilots when there must be a huge pool of pilots currently still looking for a job? I'm just finding this a little bit odd. Am I wrong in that? Is everyone back in full-time employment in the US pilot-wise?
No.
Not
that I know of. Mm-mm.
So,
but
why would they go to the expense?
Well, along with recalling pilots who had jobs and then just getting folks back into, if someone's going to start with a new company or something, you still need to get them in and get them trained. So I don't know that they're making big differentiations between that and pilots who are brand new to airlines.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's just that we've got a piece from Captain Nigel coming up where we'll see the other side of the coin. of pilots being treated very poorly out in the Far East. And, of course, it just makes me think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just from my own personal experience, we'll talk about this a little bit in the getting to know you segment, I'm sure. But trips I've taken recently, I can definitely confirm that at least at major hub airports and on major airlines, capacity does seem to be very gives the appearance of being back at normal levels or close to normal levels. Probably different in smaller areas, but and depending on where you are in the country too, depending on restrictions and things like that. But I think we're definitely moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I can tell you. I'm sorry. I was going to say, at least from the last couple flights that I've taken, it used to be that at the height of the pandemic, even during the daytime, you would get at least flying here in the continental U.S., you get a pretty healthy direct every once in a while. Flying from doing those transcons, and I feel like now you're basically sticking to your route. So and the frequencies, the radio frequencies are certainly getting a lot busier. So that's perhaps another indicator there that things are in fact returning, albeit slowly, back to normal, which is great because I tell you, I mean, my heart hurts for those folks that have their wings clipped because I mean it's what we love to do, and it's people's livelihoods, and it's really it's a sad it's a sad state of affairs that we found ourselves in a little under a year ago. But certainly, I'm happy to see things are slowly returning back to normal.
I think things here in the domestic U.S. market are improving considerably better than every other part of the world. Even the international kind of stuff from here is still suffering, and it's going to be a while, they say, for that to recover. But the domestic aspect of it, they're expecting close to normal kind of traffic as early as possibly this summer, and definitely by the next summer. They said that yesterday or the day before, the TSA recorded 1 million passengers screened.
Screenings, movements, yeah.
Yeah. Of course, that does include employees as well. So, but typically, to give it something to compare to, on average, pre-pandemic, I think they said it was about 2.3 million per day, and I think the highest was like 2.8 million.
So still something
Thursday,
shy of 50% of normal screening capacity at airports. Yeah.
But compared to the way it's been in previous months, things have really all of a sudden started to, spiking up. So, spiking, I guess I'm not allowed to use that term. That's kind of inflammatory when it comes to
is it?
The corona. Doesn't have little spikes on it.
It does. Proteins, yeah.
Yeah, little microaggression, sorry.
Microaggression. Tell us how you really feel, Jeff.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to tell you how I feel right now because I feel like I have coronavirus again.
Oh, no.
I don't. I think I'm okay. I think I have something else, I'm sure.
Uh-huh.
I have been doing some Google searching, though.
Have you been WebMDing your symptoms?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Moving on. United Airlines passenger ordered to pay $50,000 for hitting a flight attendant and forcing a plane to divert to Alaska. A man from California.
I said good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he also threatened to kill the flight attendant after he was denied an alcoholic beverage. Well, we can kind of relate.
Oh,
right?
So he's a joy to be around at parties, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
Lord.
Let's see. Seksan Kumtang of North Hollywood appeared in court earlier this week where he was sentenced to 5 years probation and ordered to reimburse United Airlines for expenses incurred during the diversion, which included the cost of meals and lodging for the rest of the flight's displaced passengers and crew, expenses that totaled $49,793. Prior to Tuesday's sentencing, Kumtang has pleaded guilty to interfering with the flight crew during an arraignment in November. During last February's incident, 52-year-old Kumtang reportedly began acting up shortly after takeoff from Los Angeles when a crew member observed him banging on the airport bathroom doors. I think they mean airplane bathroom doors because they're in an airplane in flight. The flight attendant tried to direct him to a different restroom, at which point he attempted but failed to shove the crew member, according to Anchorage Daily News article published last February. He eventually returned to his seat and fell asleep. When he awoke, he ordered more alcoholic beverages but was denied. He then began swearing loudly before striking a flight attendant in the face and attempting to take the crew member to the floor of the aircraft. At one point, he also yelled, "I will kill you," according to an FBI affidavit obtained by the Anchorage Daily News. Crew members and passengers rushed to restrain the disruptive traveler before the flight was diverted to Anchorage. Flight landed safely, was met by local officials, and they put him up in a very nice hotel in Anchorage. Well, it wasn't really a hotel.
It was kind of a solid. It was a very private hotel, probably private room.
Yeah. Lots of bars to choose from.
Spartan what do they call it? What's the style where there's not a lot of furnishings? Minimalist.
Yeah. Minimalist.
Yeah.
Minimalist. Styling. Mm-hmm.
Kind of monochromatic decor.
It did say the judge overseeing Tuesday's proceedings said the man avoided a prison sentence out of concern for his medical condition, which puts him at a higher risk of COVID-19 infection. Well, he should have thought of that before he acted like a jerk.
I know.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's our news for this week's episode. And that means it's one of the best parts of the show, which is called Getting to Know Us. And I will not attempt to sing because I'm trying to suppress my coughs. Anyway. So, let's see. Who wants to go first and let us know what has been happening with them since our last episode?
Let's do seniority. Order of seniority here.
Okay, I think Steph then.
All right. Well, I mean, I just, didn't want to step on anyone's toes if anyone had something really interesting going on in the past week. I don't even remember. When did we record last? Wednesday last week? Not this week.
I think it was
the previous week.
I think it was Wednesday of last week or Thursday. Thursday. Liz is
Thursday?
saying.
Wednesday. It was definitely Wednesday. Thursday?
It was Thursday, Liz said. Don't question.
I mean, I would never question Liz. She is right
100%
of the time.
Steph, you're right.
It was Wednesday.
Liz is apologizing. She said Steph's right.
So all good. We help each other out. It's hard to remember these things all the days.
So hang on a minute.
Together.
If one of you is right, one of you is wrong. Are we above or below 50%?
Both.
As long as we get to the correct answer.
Right in the middle.
As long as we arrive at the correct answer before the show is over, I think we're above 50%.
Okay.
Well, I'm looking at the calendar. I guess we never changed.
Yeah, 67%
the
correct. Yeah, 2/3.
Because it says that it was Wednesday of last week on the calendar, but we never changed it, so that's why it threw us off.
No, but it was anyway. Anyway, moving on from there. So, I kind of.
Oh, it was Wednesday. Yes. Okay.
Didn't have a lot of plans for the upcoming weekend that week, so that was last weekend, and I had been a little envious of one of my. I guess we could call ourselves teammates. We share the same running coach who has been out to Utah multiple times this year for kind of these weekend skiing trips and posting them. And normally this time of year I would be out there for a conference. As we all know, my conferences that I like so much out in Utah that also involve quite a bit of skiing. That was canceled this year because of the pandemic. But just watching the weather and everything else last week, the snow was looking fantastic. In fact, I think they got 4 feet of snow in 4 days.
4 feet?
Yeah. Which was good, but also bad because it created very, very high avalanche danger. So I was kind of on the fence. Should I go? Should I not go? Because obviously at the ski resorts and things like that, they work really hard to control and minimize the avalanche danger in bounds of the ski area. But it was so high that the road to the ski resorts was actually closed for, I think, almost 72 hours while they cleared everything. There were multiple avalanches and slides across the actual road to the ski resorts. The town of Alta, which has Alta and Snowbird ski resorts, had what they call an interlodge period where they actually would not let people who were at the resort out of the hotels or buildings for 60 hours because the avalanche danger was so high. So people actually just got stuck there. I think that was Tuesday and Wednesday.
That must have been one hell of a party.
Well, I talked to a few people who were stuck there, and they said it really wasn't that great because they were just stuck in their rooms mostly.
Oh, they're stuck in their rooms.
Well, too, with COVID and all the other restrictions, it wasn't like. I think normally it'd be a little bit more exciting, but
yeah,
for the folks who were stuck up there, Thursday was great though because they had all this fresh snow. The road to the ski resort was still closed, but they were able to open up the ski resort because they had the avalanche danger under reasonable control. So it was reduced capacity at the resorts, fresh snow. They call it a country club ski day. So that was Thursday, but I decided, heck, I should go. So Friday evening after work, jumped on a plane, flew out to Salt Lake, got myself a nice hotel room up at Snowbird, and spent the next 2 days skiing, and then flew home. So like we were talking about, just flying between Charlotte and Salt Lake City, pretty busy in the airports. Got to see the new Salt Lake City airport terminal, which is actually very, very nice. It's a lot of walking. If you're going to be flying through Salt Lake City, prepare to do a lot of walking between gates and terminals and everything else. I was a little surprised, but very nice, beautiful. Snow was fantastic. Got to see both my brothers while I was out there, so that was a good thing. And just had a nice little weekend getaway. So very enjoyable.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any flying, or has the weather kind of been not good for that kind of?
Weather has not been good for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully, fingers crossed. Hopefully, next weekend we shall see.
All right. Very good. Rick, what's been up, man?
Very nice. Well, with me, not a lot of flying either. Last time I flew was that out and back to St. Louis. I did. I was sitting reserve in Ontario, and I was actually called out to fly 2 more times after that. The first time, we limoed from Ontario down to March Air Force Base. It was about a half hour, 40-minute drive in Southern California traffic, so it's quite enjoyable. Made it to.
So in other words, only a couple of miles away.
So made it to March Air Force Base at Riverside there, and we were supposed to take a plane from there over to Baltimore. Overnight in Baltimore, and then fly back to Riverside the following morning. The issue was that there was another 767 that had a maintenance issue getting worked out and looked at. And so if they weren't able to, square the airplane off and just have it do its flight, they're going to unload that jet, load us up, and we would take the freight over to Baltimore. So we got to the airport. The jet was ready. There were, everything was fueled, ready to go. But it looked like the airplane that they were working on they were in fact going to be able to fix this thing, which they did. And so that flight left, albeit a little late. And so we were returned back to the airport, back to the hotel in lovely Southern California traffic once again. To go back and reserve some more, and then a couple of days after that, I think the day after or 2 days after, the same deal. Rescue a plane out of this time out of the Ontario airport, so the drive wasn't that bad. And before we even got out of the car to get to the airplane, they figured the problem out, and so they drove us right back to the hotel. So that was I got dressed up for nothing twice. But
that go. Oh no, not that guy.
Not that exactly.
Guy. Yeah, I'm okay.
It signed off, good to go. So that was it. So that one flight to St. Louis and back, and then so got home. I'm looking at the calendar here. Got home on Tuesday, and just been working around the house quite a bit. We're looking at doing some major remodeling here. So we had a couple of architects come over and give us a couple of quotes that we can do. And the reason why we have to involve architects is because there's a little bit of structural issues as far as the kind of additions that we want to make, and so they have to look at the load bearing of the walls and then basically the layout and all that other stuff.
Bearing,
just little details, details.
It doesn't.
And so just been doing that, and then yesterday I was just continuing on with my work out here in the courtyard, putting nice my river rocks around the planters here, and then the thing is that the kind of look that I like, it's not something that you can buy at a store. So basically what I do is I just buy the river rocks at the Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever the store is in the big box item stores, and then I order this thing called Sealcrete. It's this wet look concrete spray. Spray the rocks and then just kind of place them there. So yesterday I carried, what was it, 40 bags of river rocks around. So that was my job.
Get your workout in. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, on my
Look
hands
at
and
those
knees all
guns
day.
right
On my hands and knees yesterday working on that, and it was nice, And then in the evening I grilled a couple steaks. We had the neighbors over and had a nice dinner. So that's
nice.
Put a nice bow on a day.
Work done before summer shows up. And
oh, exactly. That's the thing. Exactly.
Outside.
Oh, yeah.
Does it get
exactly. Oh, yeah. A little bit. So, no, exactly right. You're right, Seth. Because I mean, if during the summertime, it's 9:00 now, 9:30 now. Summertime at this time a day, I mean, you're looking at the 90s, and it's it's not even 10 o'clock in the morning yet. So. Yeah, so you got to get that outside work done early in the year. Otherwise,
Nigel, is some advice for you, Rick. You need to strengthen your house now that they're raining 777 engine parts all over the place.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to protect the investment over here. Kevlar roofs.
Put that rock and spray crete or whatever it was on your roof. Right
there, you go. Yeah, that'll
hey,
keep you protected.
We're looking at the video. That's just an absolutely beautiful wooden desk and hutch or whatever you call it behind you there.
The Resolute.
Is that something from your family, or I mean, is that something that you found somewhere in an antique store or what?
No. This is Kaya's desk, and yeah. So this was given to her by her parents.
Mm-hmm.
So this
Gorgeous.
is kind of a family heirloom type thing. It's been in her family. So that's why it was funny when you told me about installing the mic and drilling
drilling a hole through the desk.
Yeah, I'm thinking, that would have been a bad move.
See, I was actually still planning to do that to my desk. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
I was like, yeah, Jeff, I don't think that'd be a.
My desk is definitely not a family heirloom here.
If you want to be in Kaya's good graces, let me suggest that we not do that.
You didn't tell me it was her desk. And yeah, I don't care.
I'm just jealous of that chair, Rick. It looks very comfortable.
Yeah, very, very comfortable indeed. And were those dogs on my end? Perhaps, I don't know.
No, they're my end.
Okay.
That's why I stopped talking so quick.
They sounded too loud to be the dogs on my end, or too large to be the dogs on my end.
Hey, so Nick, do you want me to just completely skip you because you're always disappointed when I come to you and you say
well, now I've got something to say this week.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right. Let's hear it.
Absolutely. So I mean, just on the house fixing up, I had to take down our 25-year-old rose arch, which looks just glorious in the summer, smothered in white roses, but it had reached the point where it was giving way, so that had to come down. And my God, those roses are vicious. I mean, you think most fighters have decent self-protection systems? I'm not kidding. I am just covered in punctures from all those damn thorns. So the roses, and after that length of time, had like tree trunks almost. They were very substantial. We managed to preserve some, and we got the structure down, and I've got a replacement one behind me, which is Jill's birthday present, going up in the next couple of days when my back feels a bit better, because right now my back is not happy with me. So that was the first thing. And then because we had, as you can see behind me, we had the big moon, the snow moon, I think it's called, last couple of nights, a full moon, very, very bright. we've got Pip in the chat room who'll probably tell me why it's such a special moon, but it was just fabulous last night. So I took the camera out and took a couple of shots. They were so big I couldn't fit it in the picture frame on this video, but that was fun. And then, of course, there's a couple of things just to remember, because Liz reminded me that it was 2 years ago today that I was on my very last trip as an airline pilot. So that's right. I'd flown out in an A330 to Miami, and we had a really nice couple of days in Miami, and we even got Fred down there. I don't think you made it, did you, Steph?
No, I did not, because I was at the aforementioned conference in Utah. That week.
That's right. Yes, you were. Very important conference.
Busy.
But it was a lovely meetup and flight home. And I had no idea then that what's troubling me now was really going to start big time soon after I landed, because that's when I threw a disc in my back and ended up really invaliding myself out of the business, so that I lost my medical and couldn't get it back again, and decided that it was so close to retirement I wouldn't even try. I would retire 6 months early and just enjoy the life of a podcast star.
There you go.
Absolutely.
So I was wrong. I was not in Utah. Liz is actually correct on this one. I was actually in Tokyo, so even farther away.
Oh, you were running a marathon, I expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't keep track of my schedule.
Absolutely.
2 years after the fact.
But the big thing I was going to mention, really, and a thank you, is to Tuber Tony, one of our listeners. Now, I think the first time I met Tony was when we had a meet-up at the Udvar-Hazy Center near the airport in Washington, where we got together with Robert and I'm not going to remember everyone. I think Hillel was there. There was a bunch of Micah almost certainly, and bunch of our listeners, and in particular Robert, who had was a regular. He lives in Washington. He was a regular visitor. More or less gave us a tour of the museum, but it was really great to wander around that fabulous aviation museum. And chatting to Tony, I discovered that he was a band member of the United States Navy Band. So we just kind of kept in touch, and a while later he suggested to me that a suitable subject for a plane tale would be the dreadful loss the band suffered in 1960 on the, I think it was the 25th or I think it's the 25th of February 1960, when 19 members of their band who were touring South America were positioning up to Buenos Aires, and they were they were positioning up to Rio de Janeiro. They were going to play for a formal event that evening, and they had a mid-air collision with a DC-3. They were flying in a Navy DC-6, and all 19 members of the band on board died. It was a tragic event, but it gave me the chance to tell a little bit of the story of how the US Navy Band was formed, its history, and then cover this awful event, and then basically give an admiring air to how the rest of the band managed to carry on playing events for the rest of this tour, despite the fact that they had suffered this awful tragedy. And it was a perfect subject for a plane tale. So I thought that was brilliant. But then Tony went on to let the US Navy PR people know, and they featured it on the US Navy Band Facebook page, on the 25th of February, mentioning the goodwill tour that the Navy were undergoing and how they lost their entire chamber orchestra in that collision. And they go on to say, the Airline Pilot Guide podcast takes a deeper look at the collision, offering a detailed look into the catastrophic event and how they will never forget the lives of those lost, and link to the plain tale on our website, which I thought was fabulous because, that website has over 1 million followers. And if there's anyone who, saw that and decided to listen in out of interest, welcome aboard. And what a great story that was. And thank you very much indeed, Tony, for giving us that extra publicity. Very kind.
Absolutely. Thank you for the shout out. And thank you, Nick, to all the amazing work that you do each and every week with those plain tales. Definitely noteworthy, for sure.
Well, that's very kind. And, I love it. I enjoy doing it.
I know you do. All right. Anything else?
No, not for me.
How's the back feeling, though? Okay?
Very iffy.
Yeah,
I'm okay.
okay.
But if I just look at it wrong, then it starts to
Well, you don't want to do that because you'd have to twist yourself into pretzel. So just kind of
wonder.
That,
just
I could use a mirror, of course.
Face
Rick,
forward, and you'll be all right.
Which is more or less what I'm doing. Absolutely.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent.
Well, being an aviation expert and man of aviation intrigue that I am. That's a joke. International intrigue.
I like
what's that?
I don't even know what that. The accolades you've given yourself there. Yes, for sure.
Thank you. Yes. Well, nobody else gives them to me, so I gotta. Somebody's got to. No, I'm just kidding. I received an email regarding an auction, and I think, well, they must be thinking that I'm the kind of guy that would attend auctions and bid on expensive things. And this was lot number 51, an auction that ended on Thursday. I was going to do this while we recorded the show live on Thursday to just kind of get an idea of what the bidding was like, and perhaps maybe put in the winning bid for this. So this is a interesting book. Amelia Earhart signed limited edition of the book 20 Hours 40 Minutes, one of only 150 limited edition copies signed by Earhart, with a U.S. flag carried aboard her 1928 transatlantic flight. It's a little tiny flag, silk, like the size of a business card on one of the pages. And I thought, wow, that's really nice. They had the minimum bid, this is before the auction started, $8,750. Well, I checked in on this the other day, and it looks like when the auction ended on Friday, they got to $10,938. Wow, I was going to spend at least $20,000 on it. So, yeah. Oh, Liz says, time to talk about the coffee fund. The coffee/auction bidding fund. No, I'm just kidding. I would not have spent that much money on something. I just thought that was interesting. Would have been a cool piece of history to own, I think, but not for me. And let's see, what else did I want to talk about? Let's see. Since the last show, I've flown, I had a 3-day and a 2-day trip scheduled. A Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then a Thursday, Friday. I got a call. I don't think this happened before the podcast last week. Somebody called up and said, hey, Jeff, I'd like to buy your trip from you. And it was a management pilot. And I thought, okay, that sounds fair to me. You mean you'll pay me for actually not flying the trip? And he said, yes. And I went, okay, good. I like that. I called up Brent, or sent him a text, actually. He and I were supposed to fly that trip again together, stuff. And I said, Brent, I don't want to, do this to you if you don't want me to, but I'm having this offer proffered to me. And he said, yeah, go ahead. I'd do the same thing. So I went ahead and accepted the buy of the trip. And this is for things like management pilots have certain numbers of or hours they have to log every quarter, and they got to keep their landing currency and that kind of thing. And every now and then they'll look at somebody's trip, and if it looks nice enough, they'll say, "Oh, I'd like that one right there." And they probably don't get a lot of folks that say, "No, I don't want you to buy the trip. I want to fly it." So I ended up picking up another trip Sunday and Monday, an actual overtime trip. So I got double pay on that one. So it worked out pretty well. That was an overnight in Oklahoma City. And then on Thursday and Friday, had an overnight in Milwaukee. And that's Thursday was when we were supposed to record the show. And if you listen to the intro there with Radio Roger, he told you that I was in Milwaukee at the Pfister, Pfister hotel, and I was, but we didn't record that day. So here we are on Sunday morning. And my next week, I fly out on Tuesday afternoon, Deadhead, and then I'm in Providence all day the following day, Wednesday, and then fly a turn the next day to Atlanta and back, and then Friday, 3 legs, and then that's my flying for next week. So it's a pretty nice trip. And what else did I want to talk about? Oh, I was, as I mentioned, when I got back from this Milwaukee trip, I was feeling a bit under the weather. That's the reason why we postponed recording yesterday morning. I just couldn't get the energy to do it. I was spending most of my day in bed, and I was watching the This Week in Technology, TWIT. It's a radio show that Leo Laporte does every weekend. It's a syndicated radio show called The Tech Guy, and they also stream it and put it on many of the streaming platforms. And so I was watching it, and about 2/3 of the way through the show, I hear Leo Laporte mention that they have Micah coming up after the break. And I went, oh, I know. They do have one of the major hosts at TWIT, a gentleman named Micah, but I knew which Micah he was talking about on the radio. So I was able to record a little bit of this, and Micah is a regular call-in participant on the Tech Guy radio show, and he has for years been a supporter and promoter of this podcast, the Airline Pilot Guy, and the Airplane Geeks podcast. You'll know that Micah, on occasion, is also a co-host of that fine podcast, and PTUK as well. Yes. But he always, I love it when I hear Micah's voice, because I'm thinking, oh, I know for sure he's going to do something to plug Airplane Geeks and the Airline Pilot Guy show. What's funny about all this, and he's been doing this for years, right, Micah? I don't know if he's with us in the chat room right now. Okay. He from early on, he said, well, I participate in podcasts, but it's not my podcast. And Leo Laporte, it's like a wall that he can't get past. And so Leo thinks that the Airline Pilot Guy show and the Airplane Geeks is Micah's podcasts. And I think Micah just finally gave up some time ago, and I don't blame him. And then I was thinking about it the other day. I was having this discussion with Nick. I said, you know what? Really? He's being honest there. It is his podcast. It is everyone in the community's podcast. We just happen to be the ones that are the hosts in front of the cameras and in front of the microphones talking, but it's not our show. It's not my show. It's everybody's show. So I love it when I hear Micah on a national syndicated radio show plugging our show. And so let's listen to a little bit of that. Oh, he also starts talking about an issue that he has with internet radio. He has a radio from C. Crane that's internet radio. And so that's really the reason why he's calling in, not only to plug the Airplane Geeks and the Airline Pilot Guy show. And then at another point in this, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to stop or not, he talks about the fact that one of the guests that Leo has on the Saturday show is a guy named Johnny Jett, who is a travel podcaster, writer, social media guy. And Micah has complained the fact that he must have said something that offended Johnny Jett because Johnny Jett blocked him on Twitter. And so he gets that in, and he actually gets Johnny Jett on the show. Now they're doing this same thing that we're doing here, and it's a radio program. They'll take breaks, but the whole thing is being videotaped, and so you're watching what's going on behind the scenes during the breaks and everything else. And so some of this happens while they're off air and during commercials and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm thinking, wow, he's making some progress about trying to get unblocked by Johnny Jett. So we'll hear that. And then at the very end, I don't know if I was able to get this or not, but there was a response from the CEO and founder president of C. Crane Audio, Bob Crane, actually texts Leo Laporte during the show live based on Micah's input regarding the problem that he's having with the radio. So, man, Micah is a really powerful media voice out there, apparently. So let's take a listen, and I think you'll agree that it's kind of exciting to hear him promoting all of us.
Whoa, whoa.
Oh, I should mention Leo is singing something we don't hear. I guess as part of this being on YouTube, they take out the actual music that's being played from the studio, the board in Los Angeles, and so we don't hear that music playing. But Leo is kind of singing. It's some kind of a rock song that he's singing. That's why it sounds like he is having a little bit of a stroke or something. But anyway.
Whoa, whoa. Yeah. Leo Laporte. The tech guy. 8888 Ask Leo. Whoa, it's Micah from Portland. Hi, Micah.
Hey, Leo. How are you?
I am well.
So happy to be listening to you.
Oh, thank you for calling.
Well, I listen to you every week. I'm a loyal listener, and, I love terrestrial radio. I don't listen to you on terrestrial radio because the state of terrestrial radio just is
It's not great, is it? You're a podcaster, too, so you understand the value of audio programming. Frankly, thanks to the internet, we don't need terrestrial specifically. We just need radio. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so many years ago, and yes, I am a podcaster. I work with the Airplane Geeks and also sometimes with the Airline Pilot Guy.
A good podcaster knows how to get in those plugs.
Part of the deal, right?
No, I don't mind. I love it. I would have done it anyway. You know that every time you call, I mention, and tell me about your podcast. So go ahead.
Well, I won't tell you about the podcast now, but if you're into aviation, that's the way to go. Many years ago, I bought a C. Crane Wi-Fi radio. Talk about people that love radio. The C.
I know, they're great. I know, and I know Bob Crane, and he's a great guy, and yeah, absolutely agree with you.
And that's how I listen to you every week because I can't get you on terrestrial radio. But the C. Crane Wi-Fi radio and just about every Wi-Fi radio that is made these days uses a database called Receiva.
I know where you're going with this.
Yep. And that's owned by Qualcomm. And guess what? It's being shut down the end of April. And so that C. Crane radio is going to turn into an anchor.
Yeah, this was Receiva is a directory of internet radio stations, and almost all the internet radios I know of use Receiva's directory. I think now this will be interesting to see. Yes, they're shutting down end of April. I think if you program in all the stations you want, and that C. Crane has some buttons like a regular radio, those should still work because essentially it's giving a URL to that button. Until the URL changes, that'll work fine. However, searching for new stations, you won't be able to do that anymore.
And that's fine, but from what I have read, a lot of, now I don't know if Twit changes their URL, but a lot of radio stations do change them periodically.
Yeah, they might. And that at that point, yeah, you're going to lose them. We do not because podcasts, you know this with the Plane Geek. What is it? The Pilot Geek? The Pilot Guy?
Well, it's two different shows. There's the Airplane Geek, and then there's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Ding, ding, ding.
Airline Pilot Guy, APG. You know that you don't ever change that. That URL is an RSS feed, and of course that's how people subscribe to you. You never change that. But you're right, radio stations may, and without Receiva to back them up, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Your radio will work for a little while,
What's interesting about iHeart, well, I know you got to take the break, but maybe you can keep me on.
Hold on a sec. Yeah, we're going to take a break. But I will be back with more right after this.
Leo's such a pro.
So I'm looking
This is
at
during the
a
break.
website that says, I blocked my receiver at the router just to see what would happen.
Well, tell Johnny I said hello. I wish
will.
I could follow him on Twitter. For some reason, I commented on one of his posts once, and he blocked me. I
Micah,
wish he didn't. But
unblock Micah, Johnny.
Oh, I don't block anybody.
What's your Twitter handle, Micah?
John, it's Maine Fly. Maine like the state and fly.
I think Johnny might be unblocking you even as we speak.
That would
Micah's
be
a good
wonderful,
guy,
because
and
I
he
love his stuff.
does the APG podcast.
Honestly, I blocked like 10 people in my life.
What
if
did you
that.
say, Micah? What did you say? What did you say?
I think it was something. It was many years ago, and Johnny said something that was was kind of in.
We've all said things we shouldn't say on Twitter.
It wasn't anything nasty.
Twitter encourages that. Thanks, Micah. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Twitter is made for outrage. We didn't talk about the 777.
Yeah, I'm looking at this guy, by the way. You just told me Maine Fly. He was blocked.
He was blocked because he said something mean.
No, listen, honestly, I have not blocked a lot of people. For me to block someone, they had to say something really bad. And but I just unblocked them. So I apologize.
So,
it could have been a mistake.
Micah.
I've had that happen before where there's mistakes where I've blocked people
Mistakes
that
happen. That's right. Mistakes were made. Johnny takes no responsibility for them.
No, listen. Honestly, I really don't block a lot of people.
No, I know, because you're a good guy, and nobody says mean things to you.
Even on my Facebook, when we get political, I mean, if they say something about my kids, they're blocked.
Well, that's different.
Yeah,
Micah
but
wouldn't
it did
have
not.
known.
You
because I
say
have
anything
kids
about my
now.
wife or my kids, you're on my list, buddy.
So anyway,
Or
I've
off my
unblocked
list.
the guy, and I'm
something.
apologize. And I'm gonna follow him.
Mike is a nice guy. No, Mike is
I'm
great.
following him now to make up for it.
Oh, see, Micah, you got to follow. APG. Johnny, everything good at home and kids
It's
doing
all
all right?
good.
Happy birthday.
APG.
Ah, that was brilliant.
Nice.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Love it.
count how many times he said airline
know.
pilot guy and APG on that.
Lots of plugs.
Quite a few.
That's good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I agree. Micah is a scoundrel, Laura. I wonder what he said to upset him.
I don't know. Now I'm really curious.
Yeah,
Johnny
Search back
sometimes
through the Twitter archives.
Johnny sometimes Leo will ask him stuff about the kind of thing that we would know something about how to answer, and Micah, but people that aren't really that knowledgeable of airplanes and aerodynamics and the way things really work sometimes don't give the exact right answer. And so it was probably just Micah kind of pointing out that something he said was wrong. And I guess he didn't like that.
Took offense.
And he blocked him. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe
Well,
Micah
hey,
will let us know.
Speaking of other podcasts, since we're just plugging all the podcasts,
Mhm.
I should probably mention that in just under 2 weeks' time, so I think it's March 12th, I'm going to be part of Plane Talking UK's. They're doing a special for International Women's Day. We're going to do a Women in Aviation special. So it's going to be, we're kicking out all the usual hosts. It's going to be myself. It's going to be Armando's wife. We're going to have Ariel Tweedo. And we're also going to have Jody Ruger. And we're going to put together
Ooh,
a
wow.
bunch of interesting things. So I'll have some more information about that. I'll try and get that on the social medias for the information of when to tune in. And
It's going to be brilliant. I'm going to have to listen. Who's actually going to host the show? You, Steph?
Yeah, we're working on all the details right now. So I think Megan and I are going to be just kind of directing where the show goes and the order of topics and things like that.
Excellent.
Neat.
Oh, that'll be great to listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely let everybody know when the time gets closer.
Yep. Very much looking forward to it.
I'm going to be on another podcast on Monday, tomorrow afternoon. Paul Neihart from Icon Aircraft, the Icon A5, little light sport flying boat, is contacted me and asked if I would be interested in being interviewed for Adventure Flying, a new podcast on Spotify. So I'll let everybody know
Excellent.
Very cool.
So
Yes,
you'll be able to tell them all about your ditching experiences then.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get all serious about that sort of thing. Yeah, I guess they don't really spend a lot of time on talking about the Icon i5. My ditching? What are you talking about? I don't remember that.
Doesn't it land on water?
Well, the Icon does.
Oh, okay.
Not all water landings are ditchings, though. If it's if it's supposed to land.
Oh yeah,
Right.
some have been redefined as a controlled water landing or something. Yeah. I'm sorry. In my book, it's a ditching.
I've always thought that was such a great looking little airplane, very sporty looking.
Oh, I'd love to have a go one.
Thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of our listeners, Paul, up in Canton, Akron, Youngstown, Ohio. He stayed with us one of the nights at the Airbnb in Dayton. Nick, you'll remember Paul.
Absolutely.
He had me send a link to Steph regarding a Lake Buccaneer video that somebody had taken. I guess he lives on Lake Norman.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
And I've just always thought that those flying boats or amphibians are just amazing little pieces of kit. And so I told Paul that I'd be happy to be on the show as long as they gave me one of the Icon A5s. And then I didn't hear anything back from him, and then I had to follow that up with I'm just kidding. Totally expect. How about half off? No.
Just a small honorarium.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Anyway, so I'm going to definitely talk about my love for amphibious aircraft, and that story. One of my favorite plane tales, Nick, was the one you did about the long way around. I think that was what it was called, the Boeing 314. Robert Ford and the crew that had to go all the way
big
around
clippers. Yeah, that was an amazing story. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's on the schedule for tomorrow, and that's about all I can think of. Anything else?
Well, I hope you stay fit enough to take part. Fingers crossed.
Hang on. Okay. We're good.
Okay.
Had some communication with the control room.
Understand.
Yeah. Something that we're going to talk about next week. So, yeah. All right.
Excellent.
Yes, it is now time. Thank you, Liz. It is now time for us to talk about the Coffee Fund. And here we go. Let's get Jeff Smith to sing us a little ditty.
Johnny, how much more coffee? No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I can't do it. Community, coffee and tea, and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. All right, Coffee Fund. Your way, dear listener, to support our show financially. Now, there are many, many ways to support our community. Just being part of it is support in itself. For those of you who send us feedback, that's another great way to support us. But if you have some financial resources to contribute toward our coffee fund, we would definitely appreciate that. And a couple of different ways to do that. The first is via the Coffee Fund Classic method. And since the last episode, we have Chris Randall, David Lieb, and Mike Kahn. They all use the PayPal Coffee Fund Classic method, where you can do a one-time donation or recurring donations. The other way to do this, and I'm glad we're doing this a couple days after we were originally scheduled to do the show, because at that point we didn't have any new patrons, but we do now. Since the last episode, we have 2 new patrons. We have Stephen Clark, producer, and executive producer Jody Pombrio. So thank you very much for becoming patrons of the show. If you want to join these great people, please head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. You'll be glad you did. We will too.
Captain. Incoming message.
Okay. How's everybody?
All right.
Good.
I saw many of you took a break.
Yeah, I'm gonna go grab a cup of coffee and then check on the guys, see how they're doing.
Sure.
I'll be right back.
What's
I'll
that?
take another break then.
Okay. You said the first one's an audio feedback anyway.
7 minutes and 37 seconds of audio feedback. How's that for aviation related?
Wow. I haven't even gotten to my feedback page yet. Yeah, no kidding. Oh, who is this? Oh, no. Not Nigel. 7 minutes and 37 seconds of Nigel?
Is he a Boeing?
Yeah, it's only because he speaks so slowly.
Liz, you want to go ahead and
can
do something about this? Change this?
Yeah.
Maybe kind of
Crank it up to
accidentally...
×2, and that'll sound about right.
Play it at 2 or 3 times speed. Well, people have said that about the way our speech pattern, Nick.
Oh, yeah, mine gets terrible in some of the tales. I listen to them and I go, God, were you smoking pot or what? Why are you speaking this
Nigel, you're
incredibly
taking
slow
so much
drawl?
abuse right now. I'm
Yeah.
What's happening with Muhammad?
He's passed some exams.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Congrats.
He said
Didn't see
his
that.
level 2 exam on his training session as a trainee ground aerodrome controller.
Very good. Any more picnickers out there on the aerodrome?
On his frequency. Wow.
What about his frequency? I'm sorry.
16 aircraft on his frequency.
Wow. I was wondering if he had any more evidence of breakfast on the taxiway.
Yeah.
How are the dogs?
Mine are surviving nicely, thank you. They don't seem to be too much trouble, darling, are they?
I've been upstairs,
Yep.
so they're pretty chilled upstairs.
They're pretty chilled, apparently, which is good.
When I go to the sofa, we'll find out.
Yeah, during the day might be a better time.
Yeah. So, how'd you like my new hotel room?
It's fancy.
It's very nice.
It is, isn't it?
It's
I
very
wish
purple.
I could live there.
Yeah, it looks like it's more purpley than it was before. Did you change the hue? Or has it always been that? Oh, okay.
I think it's always been like that.
Okay. So how do you put the... Is that like a green screen in the actual photo?
No, I photoshopped each of the photographs and dropped them into Blackmagic. And then
they're all
I
separate
used one of
images.
I used their keyframe, shrinking maneuver thing to put me in the picture.
Gotcha. Yeah, I knew how you did that. I wasn't sure how you put the picture in there. Very cool.
Good sound
Is that the
effects.
sound it makes?
Yes.
Yes.
Sound effects are free.
Yep.
Oh, how much time do we have, Liz? An hour and 10? All right. Okay. Okay. So it looks like after Nigel's audio feedback and our discussion of it, then we'll do the plane tail.
Sounds good.
So I'll see y'all in about 30 minutes. I'm gonna just take.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Great seeing you, Steph.
Actually, it looks like the sun's coming out. So I'm very excited. Maybe actually
Sun's coming
we'll get
out over
nice
here,
and
too.
warm this afternoon. Spend some time outside and get some
Well,
stuff
we've
done
had
outside.
a lovely day here. It's been absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. Let's see. It is currently. What does
Okay.
the temperature say?
Okay, Liz. Nigel says, cut Nigel. Yeah, we need to save some time. So go ahead and just chop
Sorry,
in.
Nigel. I think we cut him last time though, didn't we? Wasn't this feedback carryover?
Yeah, I think we did. And the reason he sounds so good is he's using an APG microphone.
Ah.
Well.
No, we don't do that, Liz. Liz says, "Oh, we send out microphones now to people for them to send us feedback." I said, no,
we do not.
Well, we don't do that.
No. It was a spare. And Nigel was doing some good work recording children's books.
It's about
Not
his
sure.
speed.
Not sure who for, but...
Well, I'm thinking, well, we could always do...
I've gone
Start
to bed.
the audio feedback.
Yeah. Okay. And then he can just kind of try to figure out what Nigel said.
He'll be fine. He'll just roll with it.
Okay. Let's do that. Okay. Ready, Liz? Okay. Hey, let's go ahead and start off the feedback portion of the show with some audio feedback from Hong Kong Nigel.
Hello, APG crew and community. This is Hong Kong Nigel. I thought I'd give you an update on how Hong Kong aviation is faring. The short answer is extremely badly. I think I was the first to bring the C word to APG with my last feedback exactly 1 year ago. On the 24th of Feb 2020, there were about 80,000 cases in 34 countries, and there were 2,600 dead worldwide, but mainly in China. Today, on the 20th of February 2021, there are now 110 million cases in 192 countries. Sadly, 2.5 million people have died worldwide, and this time last year in the UK and US, for example, there were no dead. However, this year in the US, 500,000 people have sadly died and 120,000 in the UK. I finished my last feedback with, hope you have your seatbelt still buckled because there's possible turbulence ahead. I think none of us foresaw just how turbulent it was going to be, and if I'd said any of those numbers a year ago, no one would have believed me. We now routinely live with the unbelievable. Moving on to a summary of aviation then. Pilots firstly. Flight Global have recently done a pilot survey worldwide, and in that they discovered that fewer than half of all commercial pilots are still flying for a living. 30% of them have described themselves as unemployed, 17% are furloughed, 6% say they're employed in aviation but in a non-flying role, and 4% are working but in another industry. Just leaves 43% of pilots doing the job that they trained for. In November 2020, a few months ago, BALPA, which is the British Airline Pilots Association, claimed that there were about 10,000 unemployed commercial pilots across Europe, including 1,600 in the UK. Moving on to aircraft, at the beginning of January there were about 7,300 aircraft still grounded. 13 months ago, 90% of them were active. That dropped during the peak of the pandemic down to 40% last May. Currently, there are about 75% of the global fleet is active. In other words, there's a slow recovery. The worst countries for grounded fleets are number 1, Nigeria. They've got 70% of their aircraft grounded. And Hong Kong is next on the list with 2/3 of their total fleet grounded. In Alice Springs in Australia, there are 147 Cathay aircraft parked on the ground. Moving on to Hong Kong specifically, I know APG is non-political, but Hong Kong does reflect what's going on in the rest of the world. For example, there are similar issues in the UK with both British Airways and Virgin Atlantic. Hong Kong's also typical of worldwide trends. Again, for example, South African Airways is gone, Virgin Australia and Norwegian have been completely restructured, and in America, United Airlines has introduced contract reductions with 1,100 early retirements to avoid another 2,800 furloughs. It's even rumoured that Acme management took pay cuts, but that might just be a rumour from HR. Last December, Cathay Pacific Airways only carried a total of 40,000 passengers in the whole month, which is a decrease of 99% compared to the previous December. To counter the decline in passengers last October, Cathay cut 8,500 jobs, which was about a quarter of its workforce, and 6,000 of them were fired within the week. Sadly, that led to the demise of Cathay Dragon, Used to be Dragonair. It was taken into Cathay and then called Cathay Dragon, and it mainly fed mainland China, a similar arrangement to the ex-German Wings and Lufthansa tie-up. Cathay Dragon had 35 Airbus, and in one day, 550 pilots and 2,000 cabin crew were fired. That was followed in November with the Hong Kong Cathay crew getting new contracts, and basically they had 2 weeks to either sign the new contract or be fired. So about 2,600 pilots took a 35% pay cut, and about 7,500 cabin crew took a 50% pay cut. Contract itself, well, I think a roll of toilet paper would be more useful than the words written in the entirely new contracts. Cathay has bases in North America, the UK and Australasia, and their future is uncertain. There are about 650 pilots on base. Currently 400 of them are stood down, and the other 150 are flying freighters, which are very busy. If those bases close, I'm guessing that probably few of them would return to Hong Kong on the new reduced Hong Kong contract. Somebody once said, and I think it was a BA pilot, if it was just about a pandemic, they wouldn't need permanent changes to contract for those not fired. You'd include some bounce-back terms when the airlines return to profitability. If I were to summarise escape routes, you'd look at vaccines, etc. At the moment, 200 million doses of vaccine have been done. If you compare that to a world population of, say, 8 billion, and let's say 7 billion of those need 2 shots, that's 14 billion doses need to be done. You've only got 98.5% of the rest of the world to go so far. Number of countries in the world, number 195. And the number today with no travel restrictions whatsoever, number 7. IATA, which is the International Air Transport Association, represents 290 airlines worldwide. They're introducing the IATA Travel Pass. It's a digital mobile app that records tests and vaccine. Not only is it a PAX record, but it also lets you know what requirements are at each airport. They're not going to get onto their first test until the end of March, which will be done with Singapore Airlines. Unfortunately, the World Health Organization only a month ago called on governments not to introduce vaccination or immunity requirements as a condition of entry for international travel. In other words, there's still quite a lot of disagreement. It's still a snafu. So to summarise, I recommend you stay buckled up. It's not over yet. A couple of footnotes that I think are worthy. Chemtrails. For those of you that are into chemtrail conspiracies, you'll notice they're a lot less recently, and that's because we're all getting vaccinated instead. And the second footnote, I noticed that Captains Jeff and Ricketts with Dr. Stuff were referring in the last show to Captain Slick's use of the word salubrious. To help you understand English better, elderly Jaguar pilot. The word elderly is an adjective and refers to the noun Jaguar, which is now obsolete and retired. Whereas old curmudgeon, old definitely just accurately describes the curmudgeon. This is Hong Kong Nigel wishing you all safe travels.
Burn.
It's all semantics. All semantics.
Oh, man.
Wow. That was a very humorous finish to what was a startling set of statistics. Terrifying, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, the situation definitely does not sound good in that part of the world.
I mean, whilst things might be, anecdotally looking up in the States, there are definitely places where our fellow pilots are still suffering appallingly.
Yeah. I think a lot of that is because we have such a big domestic market that kind of shields us, I think, from a lot of, almost every other country in the world, comparatively, the domestic situation is quite a bit smaller and percentage-wise and actual numbers-wise.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got a tiny domestic market in the United Kingdom. All are flying into the equivalent of the United States would be into Europe. That's all international, and every single country has its own regulations and its own current lockdown situation. So it just makes it nigh on impossible. And Hong Kong, and I just didn't realize that they had just so many aircraft on the ground and they were suffering so badly. It doesn't surprise me with Nigeria, to tell the truth, but Hong Kong has already been a very switched on place, but it just appears to be so isolated.
Mm-hmm. Well, as Lane Street said, nice job, Nigel. Very clear and informative.
Yeah, nice mic.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, sounded great. That's really what made it good, yes, according to Liz, the mic. Just kidding. Okay, well, I don't know, Mike who? Yeah, we could do, let's do that. Let's move to number 2. Captain Peter says, "Hi, crew. Well, aren't we all just clever little Vegemites?" You,
so many
Captain J.
adjectives to describe all of us these days.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that a
I'm not sure if that's a compliment or an insult. I'll just take it as neutral and move on.
I think Vegemites probably refers to an Australian advert for one of their favourite sandwich spreads for kids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I guess if you like Vegemite, then he was complimenting us. If you don't like it, then it's the opposite. Okay.
Well, it's not like Marmite, which is, a bit of love and hate. Vegemite's much nicer.
Oh, is it? That's a lot less offensive than
Yes.
Marmite? Okay.
Yes. But don't forget, it's all made from the dregs of beer production.
That's all you needed to say for me. Sounds good. All right. So you, Captain Jeff, to the 717, Captain Dana to the 737, and me circling back to the beginning, back on the 747. Aviation is never boring for good and bad. Some brief comments on episode 457 and 458, if I may. Regarding the ATP crosswind landing, there was some discussion regarding the use of or lack of rudder, which led to departing the runway. The video showed the aircraft correctly aligning with the runway and touching down. However, due to the lack of upwind aileron being applied, the tricycle became a scooter, and from there on, the crew were along for the ride. Upwind aileron or crossed controls is imperative when aligning with the runway. Cross controls has fallen out of favor for crosswinds in heavy jets, especially with pod-mounted engines. However, it still has a place in the crosswind arsenal. And it's still my preferred technique on an airplane with tail-mounted engines. Reference weight and balance systems on airplanes. The 747 has had this from the beginning. It was a bit flaky on the Dash 200 and so not trusted. However, on the Dash 400 and Dash 8F, we reference for every departure, checking the weight and maximum takeoff weight are, or I guess mean aerodynamic chord takeoff weight. Is that what that would stand for, Rick? Mac?
The position of the concentration of the center of gravity along the mean aerodynamic chord that applies to that takeoff weight.
Okay. Yeah. I nailed it. Are within 3% of the load sheet figures. If not, we start asking questions. Okay. And this spurred me to do a little bit more research because I did mention when we were talking about the systems on the self-measuring systems on heavies like the 747.
Can I just stop you for a sec, Jeff?
Yeah.
3%, well, that's about 10 tons.
Yeah.
What's your max takeoff weight in a Dash 8, Rick?
875,000 pounds. Well, actually, a little bit more than that, if I remember correctly. It's close. A Dash 8 fully loaded is close to 1 million pounds. A Dash 400 freighter is about 800,000 pounds. So a Dash 8 is closer to 900,000 pounds off the top of my head.
Okay.
26,000
How many
pounds?
tons is that?
Half of that.
Pounds.
Maybe 14, 15 tons, maybe?
So he's talking about...
You're saying 3% of...
No, but he's talking
about...
he's not talking about weight itself. He's just talking about the position of the center of gravity along the mean aerodynamic chord. So
okay.
So it's not weight itself. It's just
that's fine.
position of the CG.
Okay. Anyway, I mentioned that I had heard that the L-1011 had an onboard weight and balance system, and I was able to do a little bit of research. I'll put this in the show notes if you want to read about it, from the Society of Allied Weight Engineers. Never heard of Society of Allied Weight Engineers. Yes, a very exclusive club, of which I'm a member, because, weight is something I'm always worried about. The abstract talks about the system that was put on the wide-bodied aircraft of the L-1011 type. Anyway, so I thought I was right about the fact that there was this kind of system, but they ended up taking them off the jets because I mentioned that I think it's because the actual weights were probably more than what they were kind of planning for, so they decided to take it off. Plus the system itself, I think, added extra weight and cost, so they decided that, we don't need that. But I could be wrong about that. That's just anecdotal. Let's see. Episode 458 news included the latest tragic accident in Indonesia. Captain Jeff, I will leave the wonderful pronunciation of the airline to your expert lips. Hey, being sarcastic, I think. For further information on Indonesian aviation, I strongly recommend a listen to a podcast by Flight Safety Detectives, dated 16 January 2020, which is the best explanation regarding the Lion Air accident I've heard. This is definitely my last conversion, and not sure how long I can last with the pandemic restrictions at Acme East. The rules are changing every day, the latest being that on any overnight anywhere in the world, we are not allowed to leave the hotel room, which can be up to 7 days, and then on to the next layover and another lockdown in another hotel. On return to the home base, there is now a 2-week quarantine and yet another hotel. My nose is wearing thin with the continual swab testing being done. This lifestyle is not sustainable in the long run. Keep the blue side up, Captain Peter.
Yikes.
Wow. Yeah, that does not sound like
It's
the
a lot of
glamorous
time.
lifestyle of an airline pilot.
Alone in a hotel. Well, basically, you get to your layover, you're alone in your hotel room, and then that cycle repeats itself while you're on your trip, and then when you get home, you got to go to another hotel for 2 weeks, and then you probably start another trip. So it just kind of never ends, and a lot of testing.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty miserable lifestyle.
I tell you, so on the 7.6 here at Acme Giant, you have a choice of doing international flying if you so wish. And was it July, August timeframe of last year? I did a lot of Far East flying over to, and in fact, I did lay over in Hong Kong a couple of times. But restrictions were not as strict as they are now. They certainly were in Australia. Well, I did do a couple of trips down to Sydney out of Tokyo Narita, and you get to Sydney and you are greeted with the the standard temperature check, and then you're taken to the hotel, which at the time was our normal layover hotel out in Coogee Beach, beautiful part of Sydney. And so the company worked out a deal with the hotel where since flight crews were going to be stuck or basically locked up in their rooms for the duration of their layover, they would all give us balconies with a view to the ocean view balcony room. So it was nice, but after being in there for 3-4 days, even the ocean view starts to kind of loses its appeal. And then a little while later, a crew from another airline broke hotel lockdown, and as a result of that, every crew now, from I think just about every airline, at least for us, for what I've heard, they all stay at hotel properties at the airport, and they are very, very carefully guarded, and make sure that they don't leave their hotel rooms. And so I don't, just the way things are going right now internationally, it's really not optimal. It's really not. That's why. Thankfully, I've had the chance to shift my flying to doing mostly domestic, and it might not be as great as it was, as far as, all the places to get to travel and the fantastic layovers around the world. But at least, flying domestic, I'm not stuck in some hotel. So,
Yeah, it's almost like you're either taken hostage or a prisoner in some way in some of these places. Owen, who is a international flight attendant, a lot of our hotels are giving us one-use room keys, so you can only get into your room once and come out once. Wow.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't say
that's
I've ever
just awful, isn't it?
experienced anything like that.
Well, just hopefully everything will start getting better, and we'll be back to something that's somewhat close to normal in the future here. All right. Well, let us continue then with this week's installment of the Old Pilot's Plain Tales. This one, the Horsehead Gang, and take it away, Old Pilot.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales, the Horsehead Gang. It was the 26th of February 1941 when Eastern Airlines Flight 21 was making its approach to what is now called Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport in Georgia. The DC-3 had departed LaGuardia Airport in New York, stopped briefly at Hoover Field in Washington before starting its next leg to Atlanta. It was the airline's flying procedure at the time to set the aircraft's two altimeters on different settings. One would be on QNH, showing the height above sea level, and the other on QFE, indicating height above the airfield. Since the weather wasn't good, with a low cloud base, rain and some fog, it was vital that the pilots set their altimeters correctly, as they couldn't see the ground. On board were 13 passengers and 3 crew members as the 4-month-old aircraft approached the Stone Mountain radio fix and received their clearance.
Cleared to Atlanta Tower, number 1 to approach.
Flight 21 changed frequency and reported overhead Stone Mountain descending. They called at 1,800 feet above mean sea level over the Atlanta Range Station about 2 miles southeast of the airport, and their dispatcher called them, suggesting a straight-in approach. The acknowledgement was the last transmission heard from Flight 21. The airfield lies 915 feet above sea level. Out of the gloom of thick cloud through their windscreens, the pilots suddenly saw the tops of pine trees, but it was too late to pull up. They ploughed through them as the branches smashed into the left wing, shattering the navigation light. They managed to continue on for another quarter of a mile in a more or less trend-level attitude until they struck more trees on the gently climbing terrain and then impacted into a thick pine grove, which demolished the aircraft, tearing off both wings. The fuselage rolled inverted, coming to rest above the right engine. One of the passengers on board was the president of the airline, Captain Eddie Rickenbacker, who had felt the first impact as a bump and had jumped up from his seat and started to move aft until the final impact threw him off his feet. He suffered grave injuries and found himself trapped by the wreckage and soaked in aviation fuel. Around him were the dead and dying, and he called out into the darkness. It was close to midnight, trying to offer consolation to the dying and encouraging the survivors to find help. It was nearly 7 hours later as the first glimmer of dawn came when the rescuers found the wreckage. Rickenbacker was barely alive, but still conscious and in terrible pain, but so severe and grotesque were his injuries that he was left for dead, whilst the ambulance took away the living and then returned for the bodies of the deceased. When he wasn't among the survivors that arrived at the hospital, the press reported his death. They were uncomfortably close to the truth. When his body was eventually extracted and taken to the hospital, he was indeed left for dead, and he heard the doctors telling their assistants to leave him and take care of the live ones. It was hardly surprising. His head had been crushed, fracturing his skull and smashing his face such that his eyeball was blown from its socket. His left elbow was shattered and the nerves crushed, paralyzing his left hand. He had several broken ribs, a broken hip socket, and 2 breaks in his pelvis, damaged nerves in his leg, and a broken left knee. Afterwards, Rickenbacker would describe his terrible experience with vivid accounts of his mental state as he approached his end, emphasizing the supreme act of will it took to stave off dying. However, he was better off than the 8 who did die, 5 passengers, including a senator, and all 3 crew. The Civil Aeronautics Board found no evidence of aircraft failure and concluded that the DC-3 was being flown at too low an altitude. The captain had descended his aircraft to a height of 39 feet below that of the airfield, and as a result contacted the trees which brought it down. The reason for this error was discovered when the altimeters were inspected, and it revealed that the one they used to gauge their height at that point on the approach was misset by nearly an inch of mercury, putting them at least 800 feet lower than they should have been. No explanation for this error could be found, but as Rickenbacker had said,
I have never liked to use the word safe in connection with either Eastern Airlines or the entire transportation field. I prefer the word reliable.
Edward Vernon Rickenbacker would eventually recover, but after learning a little about his life, I wasn't surprised. He was a man who rose from very humble beginnings to become a famous racing driver, the United States' greatest fighter pilot of World War I, and would be awarded the Medal of Honor before becoming the head of one of the state's most successful airlines. Indeed, his lifetime of achievement is, in truth, way too hard to fit into a 20-minute tale. Born of Swiss immigrants in 1890, his father was a wage labourer for breweries and street paving gangs. His mother supplemented the income by taking in laundry. Eddie grew up as a street kid, but he helped the family out by earning nickels by delivering papers, setting pins up in the bowling alley, and selling stuff he scavenged to the junk man. He worked on the family plot, growing vegetables and looking after the animals, but he used a little of his own money to buy Bull Durham tobacco, and was the leader of sorts of the local gang. With the others of the Horsehead gang, he smoked, played hooky, and got a reputation as a bit of a hooligan. He was trouble-prone, falling in front of a streetcar, tumbling 12 feet into an open cistern, flying a bicycle from the roof of a barn, smashing street lamps, falling from a quarry cart and slicing his leg wide open. He had a sensitive side, though. He yearned to turn his love of art, in particular painting watercolours, into a career, but he also had a love of machines. His childhood came to an abrupt end when his father got into an argument and was struck in the face with a shovel. After 6 weeks in a coma, he died. Along with his older brother and sister, Eddie felt obliged to help replace his father's income. He dropped out of school and worked full-time at a variety of jobs. One was with Oscar Lear Automobiles, and at the same time he took an engineering correspondence course. The chief engineer took the young teenager under his wing and brought him to New York to compete as his riding mechanic in the Vanderbilt Racing Cup. Sadly, an accident and car problems meant they didn't even make the start line, but within a few years, Eddie moved with him to another company as chief testing engineer. Within a few short years, Rickenbacker was demonstrating cars in big motor shows and troubleshooting problems. At 18, he described himself as
salesman, demonstrator, mechanic, chief engineer, experimenter. In short, the whole ball of wax.
This led to an invitation to compete in races. Indeed, he was the relief driver for the very first Indianapolis 500, helping his boss take 11th place. Before long, racing was his full-time occupation, and he worked for a number of teams. Not always keeping to the safety regulations, he was given a 12-month ban, but success followed, and he was soon a national racing figure, earning the nickname Fast Eddie. 1915, he finished the season 5th amongst all racers, with 3 top podium finishes, and the following year he rose to 3rd place. Then he signed with the British Sunbeam team and travelled to Britain to compete. Deep into a 4-year war, he was kept under surveillance by Scotland Yard as a potential spy following a ridiculous story by the LA Times calling Eddie
the disowned son of a Prussian noble.
Staying in the luxurious Savoy Hotel, he watched the Royal Flying Corps fly from the nearby Brooklands Aerodrome, and he yearned to join them. He had friends in the world of aviation, such as Glenn Martin, the aircraft maker, and Townsend Dodd, who became General Pershing's aviation officer. However, his working-class background held him back, and his efforts to form an aero squadron out of racing drivers came to nothing. Unexpectedly, in 1917, he was invited to go to France to drive for General Pershing as a sergeant first class, and he soon found himself chauffeuring officials around Paris and the Western Front. It was whilst fixing a car for Lieutenant Colonel Billy Mitchell that he hoped to get his chance to become a pilot, but it was a different encounter with a Captain James Miller that led him to become the chief engineer at an American military flight school he was starting. Eddie bargained and agreed to come if he could have the chance to learn to fly at the French flight school near Toul first. His perseverance paid off, and, now promoted, he arrived at the new U.S. Air Services Flight School with 25 hours in the air. Rickenbacker didn't fit the mold of the average aviation cadet. He resented their cocky college attitude, and they resented his rough manner and speech. He stood in the back at classes, but absorbed all that he could, and then, in between his duties as chief engineer, he stole into the air to practice. As his experience grew, he finagled his way into gunnery school, and then completed his advanced training under the tutelage of the famous Raoul Lefebvre. Finally, he made his way into the nascent 94th Pursuit Squadron, the Hat-in-the-Ring Gang. Only 2 weeks later, Rickenbacker shot down his first enemy aircraft, and it only took him another month to get his 5th and become an ace, as well as being awarded the French Croix de Guerre. This success did not mean the end of his difficulties, however. Several times he almost fired on friendly planes. He nearly crashed when the fabric on his Nieuport's wing tore off in a dive, and his guns kept jamming whenever he went in for the kill. Illness kept him on the ground for a while, but when he returned, he was picked to command the squadron. Rickenbacker's talent as a leader came to the fore, and his men soon realized that he was a guy who would stick with them to the end. He led his unit to success after success, and his personal count of victories grew as well. He flew more patrols and more hours than any other pilot in the service, and in the final 6 weeks of the conflict, flying his much-loved SPAD 13, he brought down 15 enemy aircraft, bringing his total to 26, making him the United States Ace of Aces. When hearing of the imminent armistice, he flew over no man's land and later wrote,
I was the only audience for the greatest show ever presented. On both sides of no man's land, the trenches erupted. Brown uniformed men poured out of the American trenches, gray-green uniforms out of the German, and from my observer seat overhead, I watched them throw their helmets in the air, discard their guns, wave their hands.
By the end of the conflict, he had earned 8 Distinguished Service Crosses, the Legion of Honor, and would later receive the Medal of Honor, the United States' highest and most prestigious military decoration. He returned to the States a hero and was met at the Waldorf Astoria by hundreds of friends and admirers and by the Secretary of War. He accepted a book deal worth $25,000 and a speaking tour for $10,000. He retired a major, but always preferred to be called Captain Eddie. The world was his oyster, and his name so well known that to have it on a letterhead could almost guarantee the success of a venture. He took part in promotional flights, crossing the country several times in Junkers Larsen JL6s and DH4s, but not without a few problems. He suffered 7 crashes, 8 forced landings, and 9 near misses. He diversified into motorcar manufacturer, starting the Rickenbacker Motor Company, marketed as
a car worthy of its name.
He also purchased the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and became the Vice President of Sales for the Aircraft Corporation of America, and then Vice President for Governmental Relations at American Airways. However, his most lasting association was as the President of Eastern Airlines. He led his company through great changes to civil aviation as Eastern moved from a piston-powered fleet of Constellations, DC-4s, 6s and 7s into the jet age, not forgetting that a war intervened. After initially supporting America's isolation from the European conflict, he became openly pro-British, saying that he was inspired by
England's heroic resistance to relentless air attacks,
and saying that
should these gallant British withstand the terrific onslaught of the totalitarian states by the summer of 1941, it is my sincere conviction that by that time, this nation will have declared war.
Barely recovered from the awful injuries he suffered in the Atlanta DC-3 crash, Rickenbacker undertook a tour of Europe and the Pacific Theater on behalf of the Secretary of War. It was during this mission that the B-17 he was flying in became lost and was forced to ditch in a remote part of the Central Pacific Ocean. For 24 days, he, his companion on the tour, and the 8 crewmen floated in life rafts with little chance of survival. Several of them were injured, and when the food ran out after only 3 days, they struggled to stay alive. Rickenbacker assumed a leadership role, encouraging and browbeating the others to keep their spirits up, but one man died from drinking seawater out of desperation. They lived on sporadic falls of rainwater and occasional birds and fish that they caught. The Navy gave up the search, and again Eddie was declared dead. Finally, they split up and rowed their fragile rafts off to discover islands that would eventually lead them to a radio. They all survived, but were in terrible condition, suffering from hypothermia, sunburn, dehydration, and near starvation. The story of his ordeal has been used as an example for Alcoholics Anonymous when the first of their 12 traditions was formulated. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon unity. In the 50s, Rickenbacker's time with Eastern came to an end as its fortunes declined, and he finally resigned from the board at the age of 73. A few years later, he died from a stroke whilst visiting Switzerland. His body was laid to rest in his hometown, and his eulogy read by Lieutenant General Jimmy Doolittle. Although his name lives on in halls of fame, awards, airfield names, on postage stamps, and as a hero of a great nation.
Another brilliant one. I had no idea that Rickenbacker had that kind of a history.
It was a fantastic story once I got into it. I realize he's very much an American hero, but only part of it as the ace of aces until Ira Bong, I've told his story, scored, I think, 40 kills in the Second World War flying his Lightning. But Rickenbacker, from his beginnings in life, just a fantastic character. I would love to have known him because, when someone dies, you only hear the good bits, don't you? I would love to have heard an all warts and all, or, a warts and all description of what he was really like. He was certainly a man who was willing to push and push for success, and of course he achieved it. Brilliant.
Yeah, and never second guess or think that he's not going to come back, because it sounds like every darn time he was like there.
Oh yeah, Lane in the chat room said that he was like he was part cat. So I think he had
exactly.
He had quite a few lives, didn't he?
Wow, what a character! It almost makes me want to go and do some more research about that crash at Stone Mountain, which is here in the Atlanta
it wasn't
area.
actually far from the airfield. I'm a bit surprised it took them. I think because it didn't catch fire, and it was the middle of the night, and they weren't sure in those days where the hell it was. But it was only about 3 or 4 miles from the boundary of the airfield. So. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I had no idea that they had radio beacons around Stone Mountain.
That sounds dangerous. Nigel's suggestion in the chat room.
I saw.
Yeah. Nigel, that'd be,
I think you should write each other's eulogies.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's not a bad idea.
Let me tell you something. When I've had the experience, I'm not going to say whether it's a good experience or bad experience, of being with these two together, and it's interesting. Let me just put it that way.
I can recommend.
We do go back a long way.
Well, Liz is saying it's great, but okay.
Jeff's experience was otherwise.
All right. Oh, did he? Okay. Liz is saying that at your retirement luncheon that Nigel kind of did a eulogy there for you.
He has certainly had some rude words to say, yes.
I believe it.
Right. Absolutely. He's a man who can speak very well, because I've seen him address huge auditoriums of pilots when he was the head of the Hong Kong Aircraft Association, the president, and during their troubled times, he was addressing them, and he's a man who certainly knows how to speak very well.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Okay. Let's continue on, see if we can knock out a couple more pieces of feedback. And Liz, if there are any in particular that you think we should definitely get out of the way for this one, just let me know. Okay. In the meantime, while she does that, I'm going to start with number 3, Maggie. She says, I'm assuming it's a she.
I think you need music for this one. You'll read a little bit.
Oh,
read the first
do I need the
paragraph
music?
I don't know. I'm not sure if it falls.
Well, it's not Ivor or
Tarquin.
Tarquin or Ivor or Torquay. Not even Torquay. What is that? Isn't that a town somewhere in the UK?
I think so.
I am. Now look, I'm sick.
Torquay.
In many ways.
Torquay.
Okay. All right, let's just pretend that I haven't said anything in the last minute. This is from Maggie. Dear Jeff, definitely not the bearded wonder. My name is Maggie. I write to you via the good office of Mr. Ivor McDonald. What a guy. I'm a cat along with my fellow feline Smudge. We don't have access to electronic mail services, but Mr. Ivor has made his iPad available to us. We write to you with a small complaint. But before that, let me explain the animal-APG relationship. We, many cats and dogs, also listen to your podcast. We quite like the name Dogcast, but we can't have everything now. And what do you humans think we do whilst you drone on about airplane stuff? Some of you lot watch the live broadcast, then for some unimaginable reason, listen to the published podcast. Well, we have to listen to it as well. Many dogs and cats live with your listeners and contributors. Do you hear that in the background?
No.
Is that noise? Okay, good. Apparently the people that are painting our front porch are here, but they're using the water in the back to wash all of the...
Spray painting the door with the cat.
No. So I just hear this loud water sound. Okay. Continuing on. Where did I stop?
Producer list.
The cat.
Well, I know that, but where in this? Listeners and contributors. Okay, I'm going to start here. We write to you with a small complaint, but before that, let me explain the animal-APG relationship. We, many cats and dogs, also listen to your podcast. We quite like the name Dogcast, but we can't have everything now. What do you humans think we do whilst you drone on about airplane stuff? Some of you lot watch the live broadcast, then for some unimaginable reason, listen to the published podcast. Well, we have to listen to it as well. Many dogs and cats live with your listeners and contributors. Producer Liz is bedding in a new mutt with the vastly experienced Jack. Like Liz, we like to promote good feline-canine relationships, and long may it continue. Now to the reason for this communication. On a recent show, we were all delighted to hear you cover the story of the poor cat, the cat accidentally, allegedly, trapped in the stored aircraft. Well, it turned out to be a good news story, charming and heartwarming. Everything turned out well. Cat rescued. Airline looks good and caring for performing the rescue mission. And all of us cats and dogs enjoyed the story and top-notch outcome. Let's not forget, it could easily have been a dog trapped in the aircraft, but it all took a very strange turn. After finishing the story, one of your co-hosts, Nick, I think his name is, proceeded to rant about, how do I put it, the potential smell left behind from our poor, unwilling aircraft prisoner. I'm not about to say it was an odorless situation, but your man, Captain Nick, seems to specialize in differing types of bodily outfall, particularly its smell, and maybe texture, and who knows what else. Anyway, we all have our little foibles. I'm not saying Nick is a weirdo or anything like that. Heavens, I'm not that sort of cat. But I do wonder what he does with his dog poop bags when he gets home from walking his lovely dogs. Let's hope it's straight into the bin and not into his secret poop odor laboratory. Now, I'm sure you can deal with this unpleasantness internally. I understand you have an excellent human resources department. I'll leave you to continue your normally excellent broadcasting. So, I'll wish you wagging tails and contented, purring cats. Maggie.
Thank you,
Well,
Maggie.
I'm so glad Maggie managed to stop licking her backside and in enough to be able to write that. It's very good.
I was going to say, thank you, Maggie. Your complaint has been noted, and it will be turned over to the Feline and Canine Division of Human Resources of the APG show. So Taco and Truman will be reviewing it, and we'll get back to you.
Yes.
Never.
I just want to
They
say
don't have
that
very long attention spans.
I find it unbelievable that after what must have been several passes walking across the keyboard, she managed to put together this excellently composed messages.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Absolutely.
Talented
That's
kitty.
a very literate cat, that's for sure.
Very, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very litterbox cat.
Okay, you had to ruin it. You and your odors again. They may be onto something.
Yeah,
here.
they might not be wrong. We're not sure.
Let's move to 12. And this is from Seal Beach Mark. And he said, hello, Liz and the entire awesome APG crew. Pardon me? Oh, okay. Liz is saying this is the why I suggested that. His beginning or a salutation to Liz and then everybody else. Okay. Hello, Liz and the entire awesome APG crew. I realize that the month of February will almost be over when you guys do your next podcast. Yeah, in fact, it's the last day of the month right now. But it's still February. So I thought I'd take a chance that this feedback might make it into that podcast. Yay. As February is Black History Month, it reminded me of the time that once when I was working a 3-day trip back in 1977, I actually flew on a 720B with Captain Marlon DeWitt Green. At the time, of course, I never realized his importance when it came to the inclusion of black pilots being hired by commercial airlines. I did some cursory Google research on Captain Green and found out that he was one of the very first black pilots to be hired. Apparently, the first one was a man by the name of David Harris at American Airlines. This was a Philadelphia layover, and of course the cabin and pit crew got in the van. I've never heard of cockpit crew referred to as a pit crew.
I like that, yeah.
Yeah, I like that too. Kind of a NASCAR thing there. Anyway, Seal Beach Mark, you'll remember, was cabin crew. The cabin and pit crew got in the van, and we went to the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and the cabin crew ran up the 72 stone steps leading up to the entrance. They have now become known as the Rocky Steps. And we all jumped around and held up our arms just like Rocky did. I will say, Captain Green was easygoing and very professional. We exchanged the usual pleasantries and shook hands. I was glad to have met him. Best regards to all, Seal Beach Mark. And a little bit of information from Wikipedia about Marlon Green, born in El Dorado, Arkansas, or Arkansas, Nick, if you prefer.
Yeah, I know where that is.
Okay. His father, McKinley Green, was born in 1900 and married Green's future mother, Lucy, on April 10th, 1921. Okay, they talk a little bit about his family background. His family moved to Lansing, Michigan, where he found work at the Drop Forge Company. And then he joined the household staff of a dentistry group. He joined the United States Air Force, where his last posting was flying the SA-16 Albatross with the 36th Air Rescue Squadron at Johnson Air Base in Tokyo, Japan. While on leave in 1957, he applied for a pilot position with Continental Airlines and was invited to be interviewed after having left blank the racial identity question on the application. He also omitted pasting into the small square block provided in the upper right-hand corner of the first page of the application a picture of himself. 5 other white applicants, less qualified, were hired. Per varying sources, he either was rejected then or was hired as what would have been the nation's first African-American pilot for a major commercial airline, but was rejected after reporting for orientation. On April 22, 1963, following oral arguments on March 28, 1963, the United States Supreme Court ruled in Colorado Anti-Discrimination Commission versus Continental Airlines that Green had been unlawfully discriminated against. In 64, American Airlines hired David Harris as the first African-American pilot for a major U.S. airline. We talked about it earlier. Following his Supreme Court victory, Green flew for Continental from 65 to 1978, initially piloting Vickers Viscounts out of Denver. He became a captain in 1966. So only 1 year after he started flying for Continental, he was upgraded to captain.
Wow.
He died at age 80 in Denver. He was divorced and is survived by his 3 daughters and 3 sons. On February 16th, 2010, at George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston, Texas, Continental Airlines named a Boeing 737-824 after him. During his lifetime, Green was inducted into the Arkansas Aviation Hall of Fame. Very cool.
Yeah, interesting story.
Yeah, it's great plane town.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it was a short one.
Yeah.
And maybe there was
You
more.
could probably find some more information,
Yeah.
especially with his military career and whatnot.
Yeah,
Might
that was a
make
brief summary. Yeah, and thanks, Seal Beach Mark, for mentioning that. Very appropriate, especially this last day.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And moving on to number 14, This is, I haven't even listened to this, Liz. This is some audio feedback from Carter regarding the 777, United 777 incident. So let me make sure I even have that in my, yeah, I do. Here we go.
Hello, APG crew. Good morning to everybody. Love the podcast. Just thought I'd pass on some thoughts regarding United Airlines' latest 777 debacle. I'm surprised that United kept that airplane in service for so long, especially when Boeing would have loved to have sold them new 777s with GE engines. Unfortunately, the management at United decided that it was better to keep these old dinosaurs flying. Anyway, United announced that they will be grounding these airplanes temporarily, most likely to the boneyard for good. I can't imagine they would ever return to service because the insurance company probably gave United an ultimatum saying, ground these or you'll lose your insurance coverage. By the way, when Continental and United Airlines merged, Continental Airlines brought almost brand new airplanes over in the merger. United brought very old, worn-out airplanes in what was touted as a merger of equals. Ha ha ha. So management was forced to ground them and all the old 75s that might still be flying, as well as anything else that's over 20 years old. And I just thought I'd touch upon the quality of non-destructive testing as far as the fan blades and hub were concerned on that 777. I would have loved to have known how many hours were on those blades and hubs. I wonder who did the non-destructive testing, or was testing done at all? Where was the engine overhauled? In the U.S. or maybe in Hong Kong? If in the final analysis of this incident it was found that the testing facility had committed fraud for not testing the parts correctly or not at all, those people should go to jail. My final thought, this could have been a real tragedy. Imagine that the airplane went down with all aboard lost. How awful. I'm wondering if the airline would have survived. The insurance company that indemnifies United Airlines finally realizes this and its horrific exposure to poor management decisions at United. I wouldn't at all be surprised if some of the senior executives at United seek retirement very soon. Love the podcast. Keep it up. We'll talk to you later.
Okay. As I mentioned, I had not listened to that until now. What's your take, Rick, regarding the age of the jet? And we'll have to make note of the fact that it wasn't the jet that had the issue. Yeah. It was the engine.
Precisely. Right. We talked about that at the beginning. Engines are swapped out constantly because of you get to TBO, time between overhaul limits, and all sorts of things. So you take engines off and put them, swap them out all the time. In a jet, really, the only part that is time limited is the fuselage itself, and that is limited to a certain number of cycles. And the cycle is, takeoff, climb, cruise, descent, and landing. And the reason why airframes are limited to number of cycles is because as you pressurize and depressurize the airplane, you are causing the fuselage to inflate and deflate as a balloon, and that over the aircraft's usable life, it causes if you operate an airplane past its useful life as far as cycles are concerned, you can find yourself with structural issues on the fuselage, and that's not something that you want to have to deal with. But I personally have flown airplanes that are over 30 years old, and with no problems whatsoever. And as long as the maintenance is done correctly, then it really shouldn't be an issue. He did mention non-destructive testing and where this engine was overhauled, and certainly that's something that the NTSB is going to pursue, and they're going to have to get to the bottom of what happened. But going back to the age of these airplanes, I mean, you have DC, well, not DC-10s, MD-10s now, which are DC-10s with the avionics conversion, MD-11 avionics conversion that fly
that great
for
package that I have in my 717.
Exactly. That fly for another, household package delivery airline. And those airplanes have been around for, upwards of 40 years. And so it's not really an issue with the age of the airplane. It's an issue of with the maintenance that was performed on that engine. And it really goes back to tracking down what happened. And certainly the ball was dropped. Now it's a question of finding out how that happened and keep it from happening again.
So, in the general aviation world, there's a lot of old aircraft out there, and they're all well maintained, and they fly great. I routinely fly aircraft that are over 50 years old, even, and not an issue as long as the maintenance done and things that need to be changed and kept up are, all that's being taken care of.
Exactly. Well, if anybody's followed my career, I don't think I've flown anything that is less than 25, 30 years old, except for maybe the airplane I'm on now. And that one's getting up there too. Just because they're old doesn't mean that they're pieces of junk and unsafe.
I just happen to like internet connectivity and good mood lighting.
Oh, sure.
A nice
I
bar.
think we all appreciate that. Yeah, sure. But as far as safety is concerned, I think it's, I don't think you can make the direct comparison. Now, regarding the non-destructive inspection, there is an article that we've included in the show notes regarding our news item on the 777 that talks about the facility at Pratt & Whitney in East Hartford, that's where they inspect these special hollow fan blades, and that area where the metallic fatigue had occurred, and the fact that some of the people hadn't been properly trained on exactly what they were supposed to be looking for with whatever testing techniques they were using. And they were getting so far behind with the backlog of making all these inspections, they were supposed to send some of their people to get more training on how to do these inspections properly, but they couldn't afford to let them go and get that because they were so backlogged. It was a catch-22 kind of thing, I think. But that article, again, is in the show notes, and you can read up about that and, where maybe some of the fault may lie when it comes to the fact that some of this wasn't caught by the inspections in the past.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and again, I mean, these blades are, they have individual serial numbers, and so everything is you can trace everything back to even the batch of metal that they that they were formed from. So it's they'll get to the bottom of it, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, it goes to making sure it doesn't happen again. But like we know, every aviation accident or incident, it doesn't have a single cause. It's a chain of events that lead to the accident or incident. And so, but they'll get to the bottom of it, absolutely. But again, airplane age has nothing to do with it.
No. Okay. Well, let's see here. I got to find my sound effect. Got to get this ready. We're going to go to 18. And let's see. Make sure. Yeah, I think I'm ready. Except for I got to bring this over here. I'm sorry. Okay. 18. Larry and Steven, they both sent us feedback in regarding the same topic, ozone risks. This first from Larry. Crew, here is a little paper regarding ozone lists. Quite fascinating. You should have Dr. Steph read some of the salient parts. As a bonus, she could, well, she hasn't had any IPAs, so it's not going to be that interesting. She could discuss, I thought I was already. She could discuss Delta P. There we go. And got to figure out a better way to do that. Delta P and urinary for Captain Nick, metabolite
Why
levels.
do I get a special pronunciation?
Well, because the way you say urinal, I'm thinking, what? What does he say? Urinary metabolite levels of, oh boy, pyrethroid?
I'm not coming to save you this time.
Well, come on, Steph.
pyr-
You know how to pronounce that.
I don't know how to pronounce that. That's some
No?
sort of organic chemical compound in
Pyrothroid.
pyrothroid.
Pyrothroid
It's not parathyroid,
insecticides.
which is a different thing. Yes.
Okay. Urinary metabolite levels of P insecticides in flight crew after an aircraft is disinfected. Honestly, each episode gets better than the next one, except for this one. We've regressed a little bit. Sorry, Larry. Talons, Douglas, he says. And so he has a link to this PDF about risk to ozone and ozone-derived oxidation products in commercial aircraft. And it's just great reading if you guys are having trouble falling asleep at night. I recommend that you read that. And Stephen Ivy also contacted us and said, hey, crew, was listening to the show the other day and heard some questions about ozone restrictions for the CRJ. And yes, we do have them. It's actually a memory item. I've never had an issue or encountered a problem with it, probably due to the 200 not getting up to the 30s very often. I've included some information from the CRJ manual if you wish to take a look. Take care. So, yeah, from his manual, ozone concentration, airplane operations are prohibited on routes where ozone concentrations will exceed the following limits: 0.25 parts per million by volume sea level equivalent or any time above flight level 320, and 0.1 parts per million by volume sea level equivalent time weighted average during a 3-hour interval above flight level 270. Wow, that's a memory item. Let's see, data to determine flight altitudes. And so I guess it's a real thing here that, and they have a table here about ozone at certain latitudes during certain months of the year. Obviously, ozone is worse when the tropopause is lower, which would be in the cooler months, and the higher latitudes would be more susceptible to it than the mid latitudes. Wow. We maybe sort of take back what we said about the routing that we saw.
No, I'm still going with him wanting to fly over his mum's house.
Well, that's a better story for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, at least it's, something in the realm of possibilities that could happen.
Yeah.
If there's interesting routing going on.
Interesting.
I just love it how none of this applies to freighters. I just don't care about it.
Well, it's just the flight crew. Who cares?
Yeah. Whatever.
Let them be exposed.
Just
to
fly
all
the
the
darn
risk.
boxes. Shut up.
Boxes aren't complaining. You can't complain either.
Fly them and be happy for it.
Okay. I think, let's go ahead and, I'll do 11 really quickly because we've talked about this before, and let me share the screen. This is from Chet Casper, and at least once before, maybe more, we've talked about this video that was taken at O'Hare International Airport. I don't know how long ago, but it was a while back. Here we go. Let's see. I'm going to hit this, and then maybe no. Here we go. Boom, 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 boom. Full width preview, and then hit that. And it's a video of a FedEx. Beautiful. Is this the MD-11 or the MD-10?
That's an MD-10. That's one of those 40-year-old airplanes we were just talking about.
Yeah. Oh, I can't believe.
Ancient.
Everybody better move out of the way. It's going to fall out of the sky.
Ancient.
Oh, no. It's ancient. Those wheels are probably going to fall off. So it's lowering the gear.
All the blades in the engines are coming loose.
And it's coming down.
There's a cargo door opening.
There goes a cat.
Oh, the fish are falling out.
Yeah, there goes the cat.
Thanks, Liz. Oh, yeah, I didn't. We'll have to freeze frame that and go back a little bit, but we saw some people picnicking on one of the taxiways.
Oh, breakfast.
Excellent.
Anyway, so he sent this in. He says, the maker of this video questioned if the FedEx pilot lowered their landing gear a bit late. I'm curious. What do you think? Maybe. It's really hard to tell exactly how high because of the camera and the zoom level and everything else. What do you guys think?
I timed it. I reckon he was just putting the gear down as the GPWS too low gear warning came on. So
Okay.
that's
Good
what I
timing.
reckon happened.
Yeah, so I'd say that, they probably maybe waited a little bit too long. Oh, what's
Little
that
bit.
thing saying?
bit.
Oh, we should probably put the gear down.
Yeah. I think the guy was a former space shuttle pilot, so they put the gear down
have
at
that
about,
drag until the last
No,
second.
no, exactly. You know,
He forgot that he has engines that he can actually go around with.
you put the gear down on the shuttle about about 300 feet, or else you're doing the you're deep in the flare maneuver. No, but seriously, I mean these I've seen this a couple of times, and no, it's certainly put down a little later than it should have been. It used to be that the landing gate for landing in visual meteorological conditions, or VMC, used to be 500 feet, and for landing in instrument conditions was 1,000 feet. Now I think just about every airline, at least in the States that I know of, their landing gate is now 1,000 feet. So what that means is that by 1,000 feet you have to have you have to be fully configured for landing with all the checklists done, and then just focus on the
That's
last step.
Your stabilized approach criteria.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And so and certainly this does not
Doesn't appear
to be stabilized. I do believe this crew became very famous because of this video here. So
I think it's just because I think it's just because they're freight dogs. I mean, this is
rules are
normal
different,
ops.
right?
Yeah.
Rules
yeah,
don't
well,
apply.
yeah. See, what happened is that they read the report about the ozone thing,
They were
and the
actually
fact that it doesn't apply to us.
exposed to ozone on that flight.
So that's I think I'm with you there, Steph. I think that's what happened.
So they got some unwanted attention, is what you're saying?
I think so. Yeah, and I think a little carpet dance came after that, but
Oh boy,
we'll see.
yeah. Hey, you plane spotters out there, stop taking pictures and videos of us.
You
Or
get us
maybe
in
if
trouble.
it didn't look quite right, just keep that one for your.
Yeah, if it looks like a little close or bad, then don't publish that one.
That's funny.
Okay.
Funny you say that, because but that is something that I mean, that certain places. I remember when especially flying the Dreamlifter, you knew that you had a crowd wherever it is that you went. Even obviously, even at Payne Field, where there's actually a museum right next to Dreamlifter operations, and there's a terrace of people watching. And when you take off out of Nagoya, there's a terrace of people full of people watching the airplane. So you're being looked at very very closely. And so just do things the right way, not do things the right way, not because you're being looked at, but because it's a safe way to do, and that's the way procedure.
Exactly.
That's our motto at APG.
Exactly right. So
we don't always get it, but we try for it. Anyway, last one here, 15, Christopher. Hello all. Not one to send in corrections, but when calling helicopter pilots dummies, Nick had the term for balloon pilots incorrect. They are technically referred to as ballast. Thanks for all the entertainment. See Adam Helmer, commercial pilot, CFI candidate, attorney and counselor at law.
Man.
very nice.
We can tell some
like
lawyer
this man.
jokes
And-
too. He's a lawyer.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and what's more, he can defend himself. So
That's right.
There you go.
So don't even
Well
bother
done,
to
Adam.
write in you balloon ticks. Is that what Grant and others call themselves?
Yep.
Yeah,
They'll
balloon
lose.
ticks, yeah.
They'll lose whatever argument they're trying to.
Yeah.
We love all of you,
Excellent.
regardless of what you're flying or riding in.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you for bearing with us again and bearing with the delay and actually getting this thing recorded. And we do appreciate you all for everything that you do to help this show become, or has become, or what am I trying to say? Yeah, I'll cut all this out. Yeah, I really honestly don't know how to recover. Yeah. For everything that you do to help make this show what it is, whether you think it's good or bad. So we have a website where you can find more about the Airline Pilot Guy show, the crew, the community, more about the plane tales. We have a APG library. Our librarian Tiffany takes care of that. and much, much more. And that's at airlinepilotguy.com. And we also have different ways to send feedback, one of which is to use the contact page at airlinepilotguy.com, contact us. Or you can send your feedback to feedback@airlinepilotguy.com. If you'd like to send audio feedback, which we love because we love hearing everybody's voice, you can record something on your phone or whatever device you're using, attach it to the email, and again, use that email address, feedback@airlinepilotguy.com. And we're also on social media if you want to kind of figure out what we're doing and when we're going to be recording and when a new show is published and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's the place to keep up to date with all the last-minute changes, such as occurred this week. So Twitter's probably your best bet for that. You can head over to twitter.com, where we are at APG Crew. You can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/airlinepilotguy. And sometimes I post Nick's wonderful artwork over on the Instagram, where we are also APG Crew.
Thank you.
Yes, that's always one of the highlights of the show. And yeah, another quasi-social media platform is Slack. And if you're a Slacker, you're going to love this. And our good friend and community member Hillel is the one that takes care of managing that. And let's see if we can see if he's with us today. I hear some water. There he is again in the bathroom. Hey, Hillel! Can you help us out with Slack? Let us know how to join. Okay, but I'm dripping wet. That's okay. Just take your time. Don't use all the towels this time, please. Okay. No. Keep the towel on. Keep the towel on, please. Oh, gosh. Okay, sit down right here and tell us about Slack.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas, we suggest episode and plain tales topics, we plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Hillel, you know that's my robe. You know, the one that has the pilot stripes on it. Okay, yeah. Hang that back up, please.
Keep flushing, but it's still in there, Jeff.
I hope not. I played the wrong sound. Wasn't expecting
perfectly.
That one.
Well, that's
okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, with that, we would also like to add a big round of applause for our awesome producer, director, control room extraordinaire, Liz Piper in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Thank you, Liz, for all the work that you do behind the scenes. Without your help, gosh, who knows what a mess this would be. We do appreciate all the work you do. And that was a nice fade out, sorry. And with that, wishing you all clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
And we'll see you next time. Be good.
Bye, everybody.
I hate that thing.
What?
That was George Jetson.
Oh.
I don't know what it is that he hates. I hate that thing.
Maybe.
What is it? I'm not sure.
It's been a very long time since I've actually watched an episode of The Jetsons.
Yeah, me too.
I hate that thing.
There are a lot of things I remember he hated.
Yeah, he kind of complained a lot, didn't he?
Oh, man. It was hard suppressing my cough today.
Well,
I was worried about that. I was like, wow, Jeff.
There were a couple times where you could probably hear me kind of like my voice catching a little bit.
Yeah.
You can make it.
Well, I'm glad you had the energy to get through, though.
Yes.
Oh, actually, my energy today is so much better than it was yesterday. Yesterday was like, oh, I don't really want to do the show tomorrow either. I really don't have the energy. But I woke up this morning, I'm thinking, well, I feel a lot better. So I think the temperature is mostly gone. It's still low grade, I think, but it's not bad.
Well, get some more rest the rest of the day today. And
I'll definitely do that. I'm off all day tomorrow, except for the interview in the afternoon. And, All right. Any suggestions necessary for show titles?
I've
Or
got a
have we,
couple
Okay.
that I can do, but
Okay. Well, then we don't need any suggestions.
So
no.
get lost, chat room. No, just kidding.
Well, actually, they came from the chat room.
Oh, okay.
earlier
Never
on.
mind. Stick around then,
So,
please. Tell us.
Stick around, chat room.
Wait. Don't go yet. I'm sorry.
I really like Masher's Fly Like No One's Watching.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good one.
Yeah. I could definitely do that. No problem.
Or watch like no one's flying. No.
That's pretty boring, actually, if you have tried that.
Yeah. Any other suggestions?
Gone to the Dogs was another one, but
Gone to the Dogs.
no engines, no problems.
Liz, what did you say? Nick's secret poop?
No, I'm not doing that one.
Nick's secret
Okay.
poop laboratory.
Pap laboratory. Nah.
Miami Rickenbacker. Ruiz more. Ruiz more. No engine, no problem.
Ring of Fire. How about Micah gets followed by Johnny Jet?
Johnny Jet and Micah.
So
Unblocked.
I know
The
Micah.
story
I'm
of
sure
Micah
you'll
and Johnny Jet.
you'll watch this, I'm sure, or listen to it after the fact, Micah. But I basically was telling everybody how you just like got the hat trick. I mean, you mentioned Airplane Geeks and APG several, or you got Leo to say those several times. You also got followed by Johnny Jet and unblocked and followed by Johnny Jet. And you're the one that instigated the direct text from the CEO of C. Crane, Bob Crane, to Leo Laporte while everything was being recorded live, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, good work.
Mm-hmm.
Good work.
You bet.
Wow, what's that? Order in the course.
Sorry,
Was that?
That was my chair.
Oh, okay.
His fancy chair. I do need a new office chair. Mine, like these seams are starting to come apart a little bit in places. Yeah, your chair looks.
Was
nice.
that
I'll have
is
to
that
figure
a
out.
coffee fund expense?
It could be.
Yeah.
That chair looks
What's
like
the state of the coffee fund these days? No, this is my personal office here. It gets used for many things. So,
Okay.
Other work related stuff.
Ruiz more? No engines, no problem. I don't get that. What does that
I'm
mean?
not sure of the reference.
Yeah. What's the MOUR? No. What does it mean, Liz?
Is he trying to associate
Nick,
Rick
do you
with
get
a
it?
reporter?
Nigel has a brain that works on a different universe.
Okay. So Nigel,
Different
it went
dimension.
over all of our heads. We don't understand. I didn't even mention that. I saw that suggestion from Nigel. I'm thinking, I don't understand what that is, so I'm not going to say it. We're not as smart as you, Nige.
We're simple pilots.
Yeah, simple pilots, simple button pushers.
All right. Well, why don't we stop the broadcast and have our little post broadcast meeting, and then we'll try to figure out when we're going to be doing this again next week. And we hope that everybody enjoys whatever's left of their weekend. I guess not a lot of it. And have a great week, and we'll see you again soon. We love you guys.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
All the best, everybody. Bye.